Hey guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We're diving head first into the gritty, noisy, and frankly, quite smelly streets of ancient Rome. But we're not here for the Colosseum or the grand speeches in the Senate. No, tonight you're a private investigator, and you've just been handed a murder case. There's no DNA, no fingerprints, no security cameras. Just your wits, your contacts, and a healthy dose of cynicism. A little heads up in this world: if you play your cards wrong, you might not just lose the case, you might end up as the next case. You could literally not survive the first day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment below with your city and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first hint of dawn is still just a rumor in the eastern sky, but Rome is already awake. You can hear it through the single, open window of your third-floor apartment, your insula. The sound is a symphony of groaning cart wheels on stone, the distant shouts of vendors setting up their stalls, and the ever-present, low hum of a million lives packed too closely together. You swing your legs off your simple wooden bed, the coarse wool blanket scratching your skin. The air is cool and carries the smell of baking bread from the shop downstairs, mingled with the less romantic sense of charcoal smoke and yesterday's garbage. This is your life. Not a senator in a sprawling villa on the Palatine Hill, but a man of modest means, making a living through your wits and connections. You are what some might call an investigator, though a more accurate term is probably just a professional problem solver. People with money and trouble, but who wish to avoid the chaotic Roman courts, come to you. And today, trouble has come to you. A frantic, desperate pounding on your door jolts you fully awake. It is not the polite knock of a client, it is the sound of pure panic. You pull on a simple tunic, grab the iron bolt, and slide it back. Standing in the dim, flickering light of the hallway porch is a young man, barely a teenager, his face pale and streaked with tears. It is like Des, one of the household slaves of your most important patron, the wealthy merchant Gaius Licinius Murinae. He is dead, the boy gasps, his words tumbling out in a rush of panicked Greek, the common tongue of slaves in the city. Master Gaius. They found him in an alley. There is blood. The gods have abandoned us. You pull the boy inside and close the door, your mind racing, pushing past the shock and into a cold, pragmatic state. Gaius Murinae, your patron. This is not just the death of a client. It is a potential catastrophe for you. This is the man who provides your sportula the daily basket of food or small payment that keeps you afloat. He is the one who speaks for you, who offers you legal and financial protection. This is the Roman patronage system, the clientele in action. It is the invisible scaffolding that holds the entire society together, a web of obligations connecting the powerful with people like you. His death means your income, your security, and your social standing are now hanging by a thread. You have to solve this, not just for justice, but for your own survival. Calm down, you say, your voice firm but not unkind. Tell me everything. Where? The sub-URA, he whispers, as if the name itself is a curse. An alley near the gladiators' barracks. The city watch is there, but they are just standing around. The sub-URA, of all the places. You picture it instantly, a chaotic labyrinth of narrow, winding streets, rickety, multi-story apartment blocks leaning against each other, and a population of the poor, the desperate, and the criminal. It is loud, dangerous, and prone to fires and building collapses. It is a bizarre little historical footnote that even a young Julius Caesar once lived in the sub-URA, likely a calculated political move to appear as a man of the people. But for a man of Gaius' wealth and status to be found dead there, in the dead of night, it makes no sense. What in Jupiter's name was he doing in the most notorious district in Rome? You feel a familiar knot tighten in your stomach. This is already a mess. A rich merchant, a poor neighborhood, and the city watch, the Vigiles Urbani, who are famously more concerned with fighting fires than solving crimes. You grab your worn leather pouch. Inside, you have a few coins, a sharp stylus, and a pair of wax tablets for taking notes. You look at the terrified slave boy. Go back to the house. Tell the Lady Marcia I am on my way. Don't speak to anyone else. He nods, relieved to have an order, and scurries out. You walk to your window and look down at the awakening street. The question hangs in the air, thick as the morning smog. Why was a man like Gaius in a place like the Subura? Was he visiting a secret business? A lover? Was he dragged there? Or did he walk willingly to his own death? Historians and archaeologists still argue about the true nature of these Roman districts and the interactions between the classes. While the zones were clearly defined, the lines blurred at night, in the taverns and in the dark alleys. The reasons why a wealthy man might venture into the slums are a source of constant, paid illicit trade. Gambling, hidden affairs, and your patron's death has just become a prime example of this historical mystery. You take a deep breath, the air tasting of grit and uncertainty. Your investigation has already begun. First stop the crime scene. You need to see it for yourself before the chaos of a Roman morning washes away any clues that might still be there. You pull on your sturdiest pair of sandals and head out the door, descending into the heart of the waking beast. The street hits you like a physical force. The relative quiet of your own small lane gives way to the full-throated roar of a main thoroughfare. A river of people is already flowing towards the markets and forums. Senators in litters carried by sweating slaves, merchants shouting at the drivers of ox carts, soldiers on leave swaggering with an air of entitlement, and 1,000 others just trying to get through the day. The noise is deafening. The smells are overwhelming, a pungent mix of sewage from the overflowing gutters, expensive perfumes, frying food, and unwashed bodies. You pull your tunic tighter and dive into the current, a small fish in a very large, very dirty pond. As you turn into the narrower, darker streets of the Subura, the atmosphere changes. The grand stone buildings give way to towering, rickety and sewer that seem to lean into the alleyways, blocking out the sky. Laundry lines stretch between windows like spitter bears, dripping water onto the heads of passers-by. The crowds here are different, less purposeful, more desperate. You keep one hand on your coin purse, your eyes constantly scanning. This is not a place for the unwary. You find the alley easily enough by following the crowd. A small knot of people is gathered at its mouth, craning their necks, whispering in hushed, excited tones. For them, this is the morning's entertainment. Your idea of a crime scene perimeter is a group of bored-looking men from the Vigiles Urbani, the City Watch, holding long poles more to keep themselves upright than to keep people out. You see their red buckets lined up against the wall, a stark reminder of their primary job, fighting fires. Let me through, you say, your voice low but firm. One of the watchmen, a burly man with a perpetually tired expression, glances at you. He doesn't recognize you. Go home. Nothing to see here. You reach into your tunic and pull out a small, folded piece of parchment. It is a letter of introduction from Gaius Murane himself, written months ago, granting you authority to act on his behalf. It feels heavy and ironic in your hand now. I work for the family, you say, flashing the seal. The watchman's eyes flicker with a spark of recognition, or at least a recognition of authority. He grunts and steps aside, letting you pass into the alley. And there it is, the scene. Except it is not a scene. It is a mess. The ground is a churned-up soup of mud, garbage, and spilled wine. There are footprints everywhere, leading in all directions. Whatever story this ground might have told has been erased by a dozen curious neighbors. Gaius Lichines Murane lies crumpled against the damp brick wall of a tavern. His fine, white toga, a symbol of his citizen status, now stained with mud and a dark, ugly patch of crimson on his chest. His eyes are open, staring sightlessly at the sliver of gray sky visible between the tenements. His face is slack, a mixture of shock and confusion. He looks less like a powerful merchant and more like a discarded doll. You kneel, ignoring the filth seeping into the knees of your tunic. You have to work fast. The Vigiles will want to move the body soon. A corpse is a public health issue, not an investigative priority. You do a quick, practiced scan. His money purse is still tucked into his belt, seemingly untouched. Robbery was not the primary motive then, or it was a very sloppy robber. His sandals are expensive, leather intricately strapped, but something is missing. His right hand, lying palm up, is bare. You know for a fact that Gaius never went anywhere without his heavy gold signet ring, the one bearing his family crest. It was his pride, his mark of identity. It is gone. You look closer at his toga. The fabric around the stab wound is torn, not cut cleanly. It suggests a struggle. He didn't die peacefully. You have seen this before. Roman street violence is common, often erupting from trivial disputes in taverns or gambling dens. What is uncommon is a man of Gaius' stature being the victim. Find anything. The voice belongs to the watchman captain, who has ambled over. He is chewing on a piece of fennel to sweeten his breath. His ring is gone, you say, standing up. Anything else? The captain shrugs. A rich man in the sub-worry at night. This is not a mystery. It is a statistic. He was probably drunk, looking for trouble, and found it. We got the call an hour ago from a baker heading to his ovens. You look at the walls of the alley, plastered with faded advertisements, political slogans, and crude drawings. This is one of Rome's oddest public forums, graffiti. Successus the weaver loves Iris the slave girl. One line reads. Another, crudely drawn, shows a gladiator with the name Celadus, the heartthrob of the girls. There is nothing useful here, just the messy, anonymous chatter of the city. Still, you scan every inch of it, hoping for a freshly scratched name, a symbol, anything. Nothing. So, you will be investigating, you ask, knowing the answer. The captain almost laughs. My job is to put out fires and stop riots. Scholars centuries from now might debate the exact role of the vigiles, whether we were a true police force or not. Let me tell you, when you have a 6-story wooden tenement about to go up in flames, finding out who stabbed the man who shouldn't have been here in the first place is not my concern. We will log the death, inform the magistrates, and my men will take the body to the family. That is the end of it for us. This is the reality of Roman justice. There is no official detective force. If a family wants a crime solved, they have to do it themselves. They hire men like you. The captain gives a signal to his men. They move forward with a rough linen sheet. This is your last chance. You take one final look at Gaius Murinae. His left hand is clenched into a fist. Carefully, you pry his cold fingers open. Tucked inside his palm is a small, tarnished bronze coin. It is not a standard denarius or sestertius. It is a spintria, a token, a brothel token. You quickly palm the coin and close his hand again before the vigiles see it. This changes things. This small, obscene piece of metal is the first real clue. Gaius was not just wandering. He had a destination, and it was a destination he wanted to keep secret. The watchman wrapped the body and lifted. The crowd groans with a mix of pity and morbid fascination. The show is over. They begin to disperse, their gossip now fueled with a new detail to share at the market. The alley is suddenly quiet and empty save for you. You stand there, the cold, grimy token in your hand. The case just got a lot more complicated. You pocket the brothel token. Its cheap metal a stark contrast to the ghost of the gold ring you imagined on Gaius' hand. The vigiles are gone, the crowd has moved on, and the alley is returning to its natural state of quiet squalor. The captain's words echo in your mind. We got the call an hour ago from a baker. That is your first thread. It is thin, likely frayed, but it is all you have. You find the bakery easily. It is just around the corner, its open front spewing warmth and the comforting smell of fresh loaves into the chilly morning air. A small, round man with flour dusting his eyebrows and a perpetually worried expression is kneading dough with frantic energy. This must be your man. You lean against the doorframe, letting him get used to your presence. A bad start to the day, you begin, your tone conversational. The baker glances up, his hands never ceasing their rhythmic punching and folding. The gods have seen fit to test us. He mumbles, a standard, non-committal reply. I am told you are the one who found the body, you continue, stepping inside. The heat from a massive brick oven is intense. You stop sneezing. His eyes, small and dark, dart around as if looking for an escape route. I saw nothing. I was on my way to the oven. It was dark. I nearly tripped over him. I shouted for the watch and came straight here. That is all. His story is too neat to rehearse. He is afraid. In a neighborhood like the sub-URA, being a witness is not a civic duty. It is a liability. Your name is Lucius, is not it, you ask, recalling a detail from one of Gaius's property ledgers. He owned this building. This baker was his tenant. This adds a new layer. He was not just a random bystander. The baker's face pales slightly beneath the flour. Yes, your landlord is dead, Lucius. Murdered just steps from your door. I am acting for the family. Helping me is helping yourself. This is a gentle threat, but a threat nonetheless. In Rome, the loss of a powerful landlord could mean eviction or a rent increase from the new owner. Lucius swallows hard and wipes his floury hands on his apron. People talk, he says, his voice dropping to a whisper. Getting involved, it is not healthy. Tell me what you saw, you insist. Your voice still quiet but unyielding. Not what you told the watch, what you really saw. He hesitates, then seems to make a decision. He gestures for you to move to the back of the small shop, away from the open front. It was before the first light he begins, his whispery voice filled with nervous energy. I heard shouting. Not unusual around here. You learn to ignore it. But this was different. One voice was deep angry, the other more refined, pleading. Refined, like a man of status. Yes, exactly. Not the usual drunken brawl. I looked out from my window upstairs. He points a flurry finger towards the ceiling. It was dark, but the moon was bright last night. I saw 2 men. No, 3. 2 worst, ending over a 3rd man on the ground. This is better. A detail. What did they look like? Big. He says immediately. Both of them, wearing dark tunics, hoods pulled up, like dock workers or hired muscle. Not from around here. They looked professional. This is a crucial distinction. Most Roman violence was disorganized and spontaneous. The idea of professional, discreet killers for hire seeker II, or dagger men was a concept that terrified the upper classes. Historians still debate how organized these supposed assassins truly were, whether they were a genuine criminal syndicate or just a label for any politically motivated murder. But to the average Roman, they were very real, shadowy figures who could make anyone disappear for the right price. What about their voices, you ask? Did you hear what they said? I couldn't make out the words. The man on the ground, I think it was the dead man, he was trying to reason with them. He held up his hand, like he was offering something. I saw the glint of gold, the ring, so he offered the ring. It was not just stolen, it was part of the transaction. And then what happened? The baker shudders. One of the big men just struck him. It was fast. I couldn't see a knife from that distance, but the other man fell and didn't get up. Then the 2 of them just walked away, calmly, down the alley towards the gladiator barracks. He pauses, wringing his hands. But that is not the strangest part. After they left, a 4th person appeared. Your focus sharpens. A 4th. Yes, from the other end of the alley, from the shadows of the tavern. They waited until the 2 men were gone, then quickly knelt by the body. It was too dark to see a face, but they were small, slender, wearing a heavy cloak. They touched the dead man's hand, then stood up and hurried away, back into the shadows they came from. A 4th person, a witness, a partner, an opportunist. This contradicts the baker's initial simple story. No wonder he was scared. He had not just stumbled upon a body, he had witnessed the entire event and its immediate, bizarre aftermath. Why didn't you tell the Vigiles this, you asked? And say what? That I saw a murder committed by what looked like professional killers and then some sort of ghost appeared. They'd either laugh at me or arrest me for being a madman. And if those men found out I talked. He leaves the rest and said, You believe him. His fear is genuine. His convoluted story is more credible than his simple one precisely because it is so strange. It is a frustrating fact of ancient investigations that witness testimonies are your primary evidence, and they are notoriously unreliable. Memory is faulty, fear makes people lie, and in a world without forensic science to back it up, a contradictory witness can destroy a case. Even if you brought Lucius to court, his terror would make him a poor witness, easily discredited by a skilled orator. For now, his information is for you alone. 2 large men, a 4th shadowy figure, and a direction of escape towards the gladiators' barracks. And you have the brothel token. You thank Lucius, assuring him his confidence is safe, and buy a loaf of bread. It makes the transaction look normal. And besides, you haven't eaten yet. You step back out into the Suburb's chaos, the warm bread under your arm. The case now has 3 potential avenues: the 2 killers who went one way, the mysterious 4th person who went another, and the brothel token in your pocket, which points to a place Gaius was likely heading to or coming from. The morning is still young, but the list of suspects and mysteries is already growing. The sun is higher now, burning off the last of the morning mist and turning the dusty streets of Rome into a stifling oven. The bread you bought is still warm under your arm, a small comfort in a day that is rapidly unraveling. Before you chase down ghosts in the sub-URA or confront gladiators, you need a baseline. You need to understand the man who was murdered, and for that, you must go to his home. Gaius Murana's villa is not on one of the prestigious 7 hills, but it is an impressive statement of wealth nonetheless. Located on the Kellyan Hill, it is a world away from the sub-URA. Here, the streets are wide and clean, flanked by high walls that hide sprawling gardens and ornate mansions. The air smells of flowers and money. You present your credentials to the grim-faced slave at the gate, who recognizes you and lets you pass without a word. The house is in a state of controlled chaos. Slaves are weeping quietly in corners, while others rush about with a faint sense of purpose, their movements betraying the rudderless panic of a household that has lost its master, its paterfamilias. You are led through a large airy atrium, the centerpiece of which is a marble-reflecting pool. The ample UVIM, currently littered with a few fallen leaves. In a small private study, you find Marcia Gaius's widow. She is a woman carved from ice, her grief locked away behind a mask of aristocratic composure. She is dressed in dark, simple robes, but her posture is ramrod straight. She thanks you for coming, her voice devoid of any tremor. Her composure is frankly a little unsettling. I need to see his ledgers, you say, getting straight to the point. His business dealings, his correspondence, anything that might explain what he was doing in the sub-URA. She nods, her expression unreadable. His office is as he left it. I have had it sealed. She hands a small bronze key to a slave, who leads you to a room at the back of the villa. Gaius's office is a testament to his success. Papier scrolls are stacked neatly in cubbyholes, each with a small clay tag at it, Euless identifying its contents. There are shipping manifests from Alexandria, purchase orders for Spanish olive oil, and letters from grain merchants in Sicily. It is the mundane paperwork of a thriving import-export business. You spend the better part of an hour sifting through them, looking for anything out of the ordinary. A dispute, a threat, a deal gone sour. Nothing. It all looks perfectly normal. Then you see it, tucked away on a low shelf, almost hidden behind a large amphora, is a small, bound codex. This is unusual. While scrolls were the standard for most documents, the codex, the ancestor of the modern book, was gaining popularity for personal notes and private records. Its format made it easier to conceal and flip through. Christians would famously adopt the codex for their scriptures, in part because it was less associated with the pagan, classical establishment. Finding one here, in a merchant's office, suggests privacy. You open it. It is a ledger, but not for grain or oil. The entries are written in a strange shorthand, a mix of Greek letters and obscure Latin symbols that you can only partially decipher. It is clearly a cipher designed to be unreadable to the casual observer. But you don't need to be a master cryptographer to understand the numbers. The sums being recorded are enormous, far exceeding the profits of his legitimate business. And next to many of the entries are names. Names of senators. Names of prominent public figures. Men who had reputations to protect. This is not a business ledger. It is a blackmail ledger. Your patron, the respectable merchant Gaius Muranae, was a loan shark, and his clients were some of the most powerful men in Rome. He was lending them vast sums of money at exorbitant interest rates, holding their debts over their heads like a sword. Suddenly, the motive for his murder is no longer a mystery. It is a multiple-choice question with a dozen possible answers. Any one of these powerful, debt-ridden men would have had a very good reason to want Gaius permanently silenced. You keep flipping through the pages, your heart pounding a little faster. You find a recent entry next to a name you recognize immediately. Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, a notoriously ambitious senator known for his lavish lifestyle and cutthroat political maneuvering. The entry details a huge loan, recently called due. Gaius had underlined the date yesterday. This is it. The clear, powerful motive. Scaurus was under pressure. Enough pressure to hire a pair of professional killers to solve his financial problems. It is a strong possibility, but as you continue to scan the pages, you notice something else. A series of smaller, regular payments being made by Gaius. The recipient is simply marked with a single letter C. The payments are consistent, sent on the first of every month. It is not a business expense. It feels personal. A secret allowance. Blackmail being paid out, not just taken in. Who was C? And why was Gaius paying them? And then, one final, chilling detail. Tucked into the back of the codex is a small pressed flower. An asphodel. It is a strange, almost poetic discovery. In Roman and Greek mythology, the asphodel meadows were a section of the underworld where ordinary souls were sent to live after death. It was a place of neutrality, neither paradise nor punishment, but the flower itself was heavily associated with death and funerals. It was often planted on graves. Why would Gaius, a pragmatic and unsentimental businessman, press a flower symbolizing death into his secret book? Was it a memento, a threat he had received, or a threat he was planning to make? The exact symbolism of specific flowers in daily Roman life is one of those soft areas of history that scholars find fascinating but difficult to prove definitively. Was it a common, understood signal or a purely personal gesture? You have no way of knowing for sure. You close the codex and slip it into your tunic. This is far too dangerous to leave here. You now have a list of powerful suspects and a new set of mysteries. The blackmail ledger explains why he was a target, but the brothel token suggests a specific, sordid location. The payments to see hint at a second hidden life, and the flower is a whisper of something darker, something more personal than money. You leave the office, giving the slave a nod and telling him you found nothing of immediate interest. You need to keep the discovery of the ledger to yourself. For now, it is your most powerful weapon and your most dangerous secret. The path of your investigation has forked again. Do you pursue the powerful Senator Scaurus, or do you follow the clues from the alley, the brothel token, and the killers who walked towards the gladiators' barracks? Your next move could either crack the case open or get you killed. You decide the powerful senator can wait. Charging into the home of a man like Scaurus without more evidence is a form of suicide. The clues from the crime scene feel more immediate, more tangible. The baker said the killers walked towards the gladiators' barracks, and that is where the City Watch has its main station in this district. It is time to see what the professionals, and you use the term loosely, are doing. You head back down from the clean air of the Kellyan Hill, the secret codex a heavy weight against your ribs, and plunge once more into the chaotic embrace of the sub-URA. The headquarters of the 5th cohort of the Vigiles Urbani is not an imposing building. It is a functional, grimy, two-story structure smelling of sweat, cheap wine, and the oil used to treat leather fire buckets. Men are lounging in the courtyard, gambling with knuckle bones, mending equipment, or simply trying to stay in the shade. It has the distinct atmosphere of a place where people wait for things to happen rather than making them happen. You ask for the captain you met in the alley. A sleepy-looking watchman points you to a small, cluttered office where the captain is hunched over a wax tablet, not writing but scraping it clean with a small metal tool. He looks up, annoyed at the interruption. "You again," he says. "It is not a question. I thought we were done. The body has been returned to the family. Our part is finished. I have a few questions," you say, adopting a polite, non-threatened tone. You know that these men have a deep-seated institutional laziness. Pushing them too hard will only make them shut down completely. "Questions, questions. Everyone has questions," he grumbles. "What is it?" "The men who did this," you start, choosing your words carefully. "The baker who found the body mentioned he saw two men heading this way towards the barracks." The captain stops scraping his tablet. He gives you a long, weary look. "The sub-URA is full of men. They all head in all directions." "What of it?" "He said they were large. Looked like hired muscle. I thought perhaps one of your patrols might have seen them. A night patrol, maybe, near the barracks." He scoffs, a short, sharp sound of derision. A patrol. In the guts of the sub-URA after midnight. My men aren't fools. They patrol the main roads in groups of 4 to be seen. It is a deterrent. We don't go poking around in the dark alleys unless a fire is raging or a full-blown riot has started. It is not safe for us either. This confirms your suspicions. The Vigiles were a creation of the Emperor Augustus primarily as a response to Rome's constant and devastating fires. They were a paramilitary force over 7,000 strong, divided into 7 cohorts. While they were tasked with keeping the peace at night, their primary training and equipment were for firefighting. They carried axes, buckets, and pumps, not investigative kits. Crime fighting was a secondary, almost accidental, part of their job description. Historians are still divided on whether to call them Rome's first police force. Some argue they were a crucial step towards state-sponsored law enforcement, while others contend they were little more than a glorified fire brigade with the authority to arrest drunks. Your current experience is firmly in the fire brigade camp. So, no one reported anything unusual last night. No fights near the gladiator school. No disturbances. There are always disturbances near the gladiator school, he says with a shrug. Drunkards, gamblers, women of a certain profession, it is a cesspool. We don't get involved unless someone is burning the place down. Look, he says, leaning forward and lowering his voice slightly, a hint of professional courtesy. You are a private man working for a fee. I am a public servant working for a wage. You want to find these killers. Good luck to you. But don't expect the state to fund your private war. The official report will say murdered by person or persons unknown during a probable robbery. Case closed. It is a dead end, but a useful one. It confirms you are on your own. The state in all its mighty power has officially checked out. But you decide to press 1 last time. What about the brothel token I found, Yusuri, casually, watching his reaction? They Spintria, from one of the local establishments. The captain's eyes flicker with a bit more interest now. This is territory he understands. Ah, he says, a slow grin spreading across his face. Now we are talking. The Lupa NAR circuit. Which one was it? Did it have a symbol on it? That animal. A number. You realize your mistake. You kept the token hidden, but now you need his knowledge. You described the coin bronze worn with a crude depiction of 2 figures on one side and the Roman numer, Alexii on the other. He leans back, stroking his chin. XII, that is the gilded cage. A high-end place for a sub-U or A establishment. Tries to act classier than it is. Caters to men who have money but want to spend it discreetly. Senators, wealthy equestrians, men like your patron. Suddenly, the brothel token is not just a clue to a location. It is a bridge between Gaius as to worlds. The world of the blackmail ledger and the world of the sub-URA alley. He was not just wondering. He was likely going to the gilded cage. Is it known for trouble, you ask? All brothels are known for trouble, he says with a laugh. But the gilded cage is run by a sharp woman named Lyra. She keeps a tight ship, pays her dues, knows who to bribe. She doesn't like violence on her property. It is bad for business. If your man was killed, it likely happened after he left or before he arrived. This is the most helpful he has been. He has given you a name and a place. Lyra, the Gilded Key. You thank him for his time. As you turn to leave, he calls out, Hey, word of advice. You stop and look back. This rich man, Murane, he was in the sub-URA for a reason, and it probably was not to admire the architecture. When you go stirring the pot in a place like the Gilded Cage, you are not just dealing with whores and pimps. You are dealing with the secrets of the men who visit them. Dangerous secrets. Be careful which rocks you turn over. You may not like what crawls out. It is a genuine warning. You nod your appreciation and step back out into the sun-drenched courtyard. The watchmen are still gambling, their voices a low drone. They are a reflection of Rome itself, a powerful institution that functions on its own terms, largely indifferent to the individual tragedies that unfold in the shadows. Your visit was a failure in terms of getting help, but a success in terms of intelligence. You now have a destination. The trail is leading you away from the halls of power and into the city's underworld. The Gilded Cage is not your next stop. Walking into a high-end brothel in the middle of the day and announcing you are investigating a murder is a good way to get thrown out or worse. You need leverage. You need information. And in Rome, the best place to get unfiltered information is not a government office or a military barracks. It is the public bath. You make your way towards the Baths of Trajan, a colossal complex not far from the sub-URA. It is a city within a city, a masterpiece of engineering and architecture that serves as the social heart of Rome. For a few measly copper coins, anyone from a senator to a stonemason can enter. It is the great equalizer. The noise hits you from a block away. The shouts of men exercising, the splash of water, the echo of 100 simultaneous conversations bouncing off marble walls. You pay your entry fee, strip down in the changing room, the applaud white arium, and hand your clothes and the precious kodaks to a slave for safekeeping, trusting the establishment's reputation more than any lock. You wrap a simple linen towel around your waist and step into the humid, chaotic world of the baths. You bypass the cold pool frigidarium into the warm pool tepidarium and head straight for the hottest room, the caldarium. The air is thick with steam, so dense you can barely see 5 feet in front of you. The heat is punishing, designed to open the pores and sweat out impurities. It is also designed to open mouths. In the disarming anonymity of steam and nactons is meant to talk. You find a spot on a marble bench and let the sweat bead on your skin, your eyes slowly adjusting to the gloom. The room is a collage of bodies, old men with sagging skin, muscular youths, portly merchants. Their voices are a low, rumbling hum. This is where deals are made, political gossip is exchanged, and reputations are shredded. Your target is not a specific person, but a type. You are looking for an informant, a man who makes his living from knowing things. In the corner, you spot him. His name is Menander. He is a professional gossip, a man who flits between the powerful and the poor, trading rumors like a merchant trades goods. He is rail thin, with clever, restless eyes that seem to see everything. You slide onto the bench next to him. Menander, you say quietly. A moment. He turns, his face breaking into a sly grin. The problem's over. Business must be good if you are sweating with the quality folk. Or is it bad? And you are looking for answers. A little of both, you admit. I need to know about the gilded cage. Min and his eyebrows shoot up, moving into the pleasure trade. I didn't take you for a procurer. I am looking for information about a patron, a wealthy merchant, Gaius Licinius Murane. At the mention of the name, Menander's playful demeanor vanishes. He glances around the steamy room, lowering his voice even further. He is dead. I heard it from a senator's barber not an hour ago. Found in an alley in the sub-URA. Nasty business. News travels fast in Rome. I am investigating, you sir. He was carrying a token from the gilded cage. Menander lets out a low whistle. That complicates things. Lyra, the owner, she runs a very private establishment. Her clients value discretion above all else. She won't talk to you. Then I need to know what she values more than discretion, you press. He thinks for a moment, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra has a rival. A man named Scipio runs a competing brothel, the Painted Swan. He has been trying to put her out of business for years. Spreading rumors, trying to poach her girls, bribing the magistrates to give her trouble over licenses. The business of prostitution in Rome, while legal, was heavily regulated and taxed. It occupied a strange gray area of society officially sanctioned but socially scorned. The owners, the Leno or Lena, were often seen as contemptible, but many amassed considerable wealth and influence. Lyra's biggest headache is Scipio. This is the kind of leverage you need. An external pressure point. What else, you ask, knowing there is more? What about the clientele? Any regulars I should know about? Murane was one of them, Menander says. He was quiet, came in late, left early. Always asked for the same girl. Pay name. Here, a pretty little thing from Greece. Lyra's prized possession. Very popular, but Murane was possessive. Paid extra to ensure she was his for the night. Other men didn't like that. There have been arguments. The Greek girl. This connects to the secret payments to see in the ledger. Could see be a code for a Greek name. It is a stretch, but possible. What if the payments weren't blackmail, but support for a favored mistress? Menander leans closer, his voice barely a whisper. There is another regular you should know about. A frequent guest at the Gilded Cage. Spends money he doesn't have, trying to impress everyone. True, Senator Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, the name from the blackmail ledger. Your two lines of inquiry, the powerful senator and the seedy brothel, have just slammed into each other. Scaurus was not just in debt to Gaius, they were also rivals for the affections of the women at the same brothel. This adds a potent, personal element to the motive. Jealousy, humiliation, a rich man's pride. Does Scaurus have a favorite girl, you ask? He likes variety, Menander says with a smirk. But I have heard he has tried to buy a night with Hebe more than once. Myrrhine always outbid him. It became something of a running joke among the other patrons. A joke that probably was not very funny to a proud senator. You feel the pieces clicking into place, forming a clearer, uglier picture. Gaius goes to the Subio to visit his favorite prostitute, Hebe, at the Gilded Cage. Senator Scaurus, his deterrent romantic rival, knows this. It is the perfect opportunity. An ambush in a dark alley. No witnesses. It makes a public assassination look like a common street crime. You have got what you came for. You thank Menander and slip him a few coins, the universal oil of Roman society. He accepts them with a nod, and the information broker is gone, replaced once more by a man simply enjoying the steam. You leave the coldarium, your skin tingling from the heat, your mind racing. You move through the warm and cold pools, the routine of bathing washing away the grime of the city, but doing nothing to clean the filth of the case. Historians often marvel at the Romans' complex relationship with hygiene and society. A man could spend his morning navigating raw sewage in the streets and his afternoon in a pristine, heated pool discussing philosophy. It is this contrast, this ability to compartmentalize the squalor and the sublime, that define their urban existence. You retrieve your clothes in the Kodaks. The informant has given you the tools you need, a way to pressure Lyra by using her rival, and a direct link between Gaius' murder and the powerful senator who owed him money. It is time to step into the Gilded Cage, but you are not going there to ask about Gaius Myrrhine. You are going to ask about Senator Scaurus. The sun is beginning its slow descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The workday is ending, and the city's energy is shifting from commerce to leisure. It is the perfect time to visit a place like the Gilded Cage. The brothel is tucked away on a side street, its entrance marked only by a heavy wooden door and a single, flickering lantern carved with an intricate birdcage design. There are no garish signs, no women calling from the windows. It exudes an air of expensive discretion, just as the Bathish informant described. You knock, a small grill in the door slides open, and a pair of wary eyes peer out. Yes, the voice is rough, belonging to a man whose job is to prevent trouble. I have an appointment with Lyra, you lie smoothly. She is expecting me. Tell her it is about Scipio. The name works like a key. There is a pause, the sound of a heavy bolt being drawn, and the door swings inward. The man who opens it is a mountain, a bald-headed Thracian with scars on his knuckles. He grunts and gestures for you to enter, his eyes never leaving you. The interior is surprisingly tasteful. The air is thick with incense and the soft notes of a lyre being played somewhere deeper inside. Muted tapestries hang on the walls, and the lighting is low and flattering. It looks more like the villa of a wealthy art collector than a den of vice. You are led into a small, well-appointed receiving room. A moment later, Lyra enters. She is a woman in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes and an air of absolute authority. She is not beautiful in the classical sense, but she possesses a commanding presence that instantly explains how she maintains control over an establishment like this. You mention Scipio, she says, her voice a low, husky purr. She dispenses with pleasantries. You have information for me. I might, you reply, meeting her gaze, but first I need some from you. It concerns one of your clients, a senator, Marcus Aemilius Scaurus. Her expression hardens almost imperceptibly. Naming a senator is a dangerous game. My client's privacy is the foundation of my business, and Scipio is a termite eating at that foundation, you counter. I happen to know he is planning to file a complaint with the AEDLS, accusing you of using unlicensed foreign girls. A baseless claim, of course, but the investigation would be inconvenient, especially if one of your most prominent patrons, a senator, was called to give testimony. It is a complete fabrication, a shot in the dark based on men, and there's gossip. But her reaction tells you it hit the mark. A flicker of anger, quickly suppressed. She despises Scipio enough to believe it. What do you want to know about Scours, she asks, the purr in her voice now edged with steel. I am interested in his relationship with another of your clients, Gaius Murane. Lyra allows herself a small, bitter smile. Relationship. That is a generous word. It was a rivalry. A pathetic one. Fought with coins instead of swords. Over a girl. Hebe, you say. Of course Hebe, she says with a sigh, as if bored by the foolishness of men. Murane was besotted. He paid for her exclusivity. Scourus has a fragile ego. He can't stand being told no. HED offered double, Murane would triple. It was a tedious spectacle. Bad for morale. The other girls felt neglected, the other clients annoyed. Did this rivalry ever get heated? Beyond bidding wars. She hesitates, walking over to a small table and pouring 2 cups of watered wine. She hands one to you. A few nights ago it did. Scourus was drunk. Murane was here with he. Scourus tried to enter her room. My Thracian, she says, nodding towards the door, had to persuade him to leave. There was shouting. Threats were made. What kind of threats? The usual kind from a powerful man who has been humiliated. You will regret this. You don't know who you are dealing with. The empty boasts of a wounded peacock. I didn't take it seriously. Perhaps you should have, you say quietly. Murane was murdered last night, not far from here. Lyra's composure finally cracks. She puts her cup down, her hand trembling slightly. This is news to her. Murder is bad for business. A murdered client is a catastrophe. Here, she whispers, he was coming here, or leaving, you reply. His body was found with a token for your establishment. She processes this, her mind clearly racing through the implications. A dead patron, a rival senator who made public threats. This is a fire that could consume her entire enterprise. Her carefully constructed world of discretion is about to be shattered. You decide to pivot. You haven't mentioned your connection to Murana's family. As far as she knows, you are just a troublemaker with a grudge against Scourus. Now, you will try a different approach. You came here for information, but maybe there is someone else here who can give you a different perspective. I need to speak with Hebe, you say? Lyra looks at you, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. Absolutely not. She is distraught. Murane was her patron, her protector. She is in no condition to speak with anyone. This is your first encounter with the widow, not Gaius's actual wife, Marcia, who was as cold as a statue, but this young woman, Hebe, the role of a high-class courtesan. The hetaira in the Greek tradition was complex in Rome. They were not common streetwalkers. Many were educated, skilled in music and conversation, and could form long-term relationships with powerful men. They offered a form of companionship that a formal Roman marriage often lacked. Yet they were still slaves or, at best, freed women, with no legal rights or social standing. For Hebe, Murana's death is not just the loss of a client. It is the loss of her position, her security, perhaps even her future. Her protector is dead, you say softly, and a senator may be responsible. She is in more danger than you can imagine. Keeping her silent will not protect her. Let me talk to her, not as an investigator, but as someone who can help. You see the calculation in Lyra's eyes. She is weighing the risk of exposing her business against the risk of having a potential murderer as a client. She is also, perhaps, feeling a flicker of genuine concern for the girl. After a long moment of silence, she gives a sharp, reluctant nod. 5 minutes, she says, and Borislav will be outside the door. If you upset her, this conversation is over. And so are you. She leads you down a quiet, incense-filled hallway. The lyre music is louder here. She stops before a closed door and gives a soft knock. Hebe, she calls gently. You have a visitor. Lyra pushes the door open and gestures for you to enter, her eyes giving you one last warning look before she pulls it almost closed, leaving just a sliver of light. You step inside, and the formal investigation you were conducting suddenly feels deeply and uncomfortably personal. The room is small but exquisitely furnished. Silken cushions are scattered on the floor. A single lamp casts a warm, flickering glow. and the air is fragrant with the scent of jasmine that can't quite mask the underlying odor of stale wine and sorrow. Hebe is sitting on a low couch, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shake with silent sobs. She is younger than you expected, barely out of her teens, with the kind of fragile beauty that makes men want to either protect it or possess it. Gaius wanted to possess it. You stand awkwardly by the door for a moment, an intruder in her grief. The Thracian guard's presence outside the door is a palpable weight. Hebe, you say softly. She looks up, her eyes red-rimmed and fearful. She has seen you with Lyra and assumes the worst. I don't know anything, she says, hurled at an accented with the melody of her native Greek. Please, just leave me alone. I am not here to cause you trouble, you say, taking a step closer. Gaius Murene was my patron. His family has asked me to find out who did this to him. The mention of your relationship with Gaius changes her posture slightly. The fear in her eyes is replaced by a flicker of curiosity. You are not a threat, but an ally of the man she has just lost. You knew him, she whispers. I worked for him. He was a good man to me, you say, which is true enough. I want to find the men who hurt him. She pulls the silk shawl tighter around her shoulders. They say he was found in the sub-URA, in an alley, like a common thief. The words are filled with a pain that goes beyond simple grief. It is about the indignity of his death. He was on his way here, was not he, you ask? She nods, fresh tears welling in her eyes. He was late. He was always so punctual. I waited. I kept telling Lyra he would be here any moment. Then this morning, we heard the news. You need to anchor her grief to facts. Hebe, did Gaius have any enemies you know of? Anyone who wished him harm? Many men were jealous of him, she says vaguely. He was rich, successful. I am not talking about jealousy, you press gently. I am talking about a specific threat. Think about the last few weeks. Was he worried? Did he seem afraid? She hesitates, her gaze drifting towards the lamp's dancing flame. Afraid? No. Gaius was never afraid. But he was angry, preoccupied. For the past month, something has been weighing on him. He was distracted, his temper shorter than usual. Did he say what it was about? It was his business, she says. He didn't discuss the details with me, but I would hear him muttering to himself sometimes about contracts and debts and betrayal. This aligns perfectly with the blackmail ledger. The pressure on his debtors must have been reaching a breaking point. What about Senator Scaurus, you ask, watching her reaction carefully. Her face darkens at the name. That man, he is arrogant, vain. He couldn't stand that Gaius had my affection. He saw me as a prize to be won, not a person. He would say cruel things to Gaius, taunting him in the halls here. He called him a glorified bean counter who should stick to his abacus. The insult is telling. Scaurus, the old money aristocrat, looking down on Gaius, the new money merchant. This was a constant source of tension in Roman society. While wealth could buy you luxury and a degree of influence, it couldn't buy you the pedigree of the ancient patrician families. A man like Scaurus would always see a man like Gaius as his inferior, no matter how much gold he accumulated. This social friction often led to bitter rivalries. Lyra told me Scaurus threatened Gaius a few nights ago. He did, he confirms, her voice trembling with anger. He said Gaius would not live to enjoy his winnings. He said it loud enough for half the house to hear. At the time, I thought it was just the wine talking. No, her voice trails off. You have it. A public threat, a clear motive, and the opportunity. The case against Scaurus is getting stronger by the minute, but something still feels off. The blackmail ledger explains the motive for a professional hit. The rivalry over he provides a personal, passionate reason. But what about the other details? The shadowy fourth person at the scene. The priest asks for the flower in the ledger. You decide to ask about the flower. A long shot. Heap. Did Gaius ever give you flowers? A specific kind, perhaps. She looks confused by the question. Flowers? No. Gaius was not romantic. He was generous, kind in his way. But he did not bring flowers, so the flower was not a token of affection for her. You look around the room at the small, luxurious objects. You see a small wooden box on her bedside table, inlaid with mother of pearl. What's in the box, you ask? She follows your gaze and a faint blush colors her cheeks. Just gifts. Trinkets. May I? She hesitates, then gives a slight nod. You pick it up. It is light. You open the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, is not jewelry but a collection of small carved wooden birds. Each one is beautifully detailed, a different species. They are simple, rustic, and utterly out of place in this opulent setting. He made them for me, she says softly. He said it reminded him of his childhood on his family's farm, before he came to the city. It was the only time he ever talked about his past. This is a side of Gaius Muranae you had not seen. Not the ruthless loan shark or the possessive patron, but a man with a hidden, softer side. A man who carved wooden birds for his favorite girl. It doesn't change the facts of the case, but it deepens the portrait of the victim. It is a constant challenge for historians, piecing together a person from the fragments they leave behind. The official records, the business ledgers, the public deeds tell one story. But the personal artifacts, the letters, the little carved birds, they tell another. The true person often lies somewhere in the messy collision of these different narratives, and scholars can spend their entire careers arguing which one is more real. Thank you, Hebe, you say, moving back towards the door. You have been a great help. Stay inside. Don't talk to anyone. I will find him. You step out of the room, leaving her with her grief and her wooden birds. Lyra is waiting, her arms crossed. Find what you were looking for, she asks, her tone clip. I found a motive, you reply, and it points directly at one of your most distinguished clients. Lyra's face is a mask of cold fury. A senator, a murder, her brothel at the center of it all. Her carefully built enterprises standing on the edge of a cliff. For the first time, you feel a sliver of pity for her. You both have a stake in seeing this resolve quickly and quietly. Your path is clear now. You have the blackmail ledger, a witness to a public threat, and a story of a bitter rivalry. It is time to stop circling the edges. It is time to confront the senator. Confronting a senator is not like questioning a baker or intimidating a brothel owner. You can't just knock on his door. A man like Marcus Aemilius Scaurus is surrounded by layers of protocol, clients, and bodyguards. A direct approach is impossible. You need to find a moment when he is public, yet vulnerable. You need a pretext. The blackmail codex is your key, but it's a dangerous one. Showing it to Scaurus would be like showing a rabbit a snare. HED bolt or worse. Have you eliminated? You need to use the knowledge from the codex, not the codex itself. Your plan is simple, and that's its strength. You will pose as a messenger, a debt collector sent by a third party. Roman finances were a tangled web of loans and obligations. It was common for debts to be sold or transferred. It's a plausible cover. You wait until the next afternoon. You know that Scaurus, like most senators, will spend his time after the day's business in the Senate or the courts, meeting with his own clients and hangers-on in the Roman Forum. This is where he holds court, not in a building but in the open air, surrounded by the symbols of Roman power. You find him near the Temple of Castor and Pollux, a popular spot for moneylenders and politicians to mingle. He is exactly as you pictured him, tall, imperious, with a finely trimmed beard and a toga of the most brilliant white. He is surrounded by a small crowd of sycophants, all laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. You watch from a distance, waiting for a break in the crowd. Your appearance is deliberately shabby, a worn tunic, dusty sandals. You look like a man who is easily dismissed, which is exactly the impression you want to create. Finally, a few of his followers are sent on errands. The circle around him thins. This is your moment. You take a deep breath and approach, adopting a posture of humble deference. My lord Scaurus, you say, your head bowed slightly. He looks down at you, his expression one of mild annoyance at being bothered by someone of your station. What is it? A message, my lord, from your creditor in Alexandria. This is your gamble. The codex showed that Gaius had extensive dealings with grain merchants in Alexandria. You're rebetting that Scaurus, with his messy finances, has debts scattered all over the empire. The vagueness is intentional. Scaurus' eyes narrow. I have no creditors in Alexandria. He says it a little too quickly. She is trying to dismiss you. But you see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. My apologies, my lord, you say, feigning confusion. My master must have been mistaken. He purchased a portfolio of debts, you see. A large one. He was told your name was on the list. A significant sum, originally owed to well. The original lender is recently deceased. You let that hang in the air. You haven't named Gaius, but you've placed all the pieces on the board. A purchase debt. A large sum. Faded lender. Scourus' face remains a mask of aristocratic indifference, but you see a muscle twitch in his jaw. I have many business dealings. These things can get confused. If your master has a claim, let him present it through the proper legal channels. He turns, about to dismiss you. Of course, my lord, you say quickly, but the matter is delicate. My master is a patient man. He understands that a senator's reputation is his most valuable asset. He would prefer to handle this discreetly, just as you handled your previous problem so permanently. You've crossed the line. It's a direct accusation, veiled in the thinnest of courtesies. Scourus stops dead. He turns back to face you, and for the first time, the mask slips. His eyes are cold with fury. He gestures to two of his burly attendants who have been lurking nearby. This man is bothering me. Remove him. But before they can grab you, you play your final card. My master also has in his possession a certain ledger, you say, your voice just loud enough for Scourus to hear. It contains a list of names and flowers. As for the less, I believe. A strange hobby for a moneylender, wouldn't you agree? The mention of the asphodel flower hits him like a physical blow. His face goes pale. The flower was not in the entry next to his name. It was tucked into the back of the book. The fact that you know about it proves you have seen the codex itself. It's a detail no ordinary debt collector could possibly know. He stares at you, his mind clearly racing. He knows you have him. He can't have you beaten or killed right here in the middle of the forum. There are too many witnesses. He has to control the situation. With a flick of his wrist, he waves his attendants off. He forces a tight, predatory smile. You are mistaken, he says, his voice now a low, dangerous growl. But I admire your initiative. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. I have a villa on the Palatine Hill. My steward will be hosting a small gathering for my clients this evening. Be there. We will talk. It's an invitation, but it feels like a death sentence. HES not going to pay the debt. HES going to eliminate the evidence. And you are the evidence. I will be there, my lord, you say, bowing again. He turns and walks away without another word, his entourage falling in step behind him, leaving you standing alone in the shadow of the temple. Yet at a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Your gamble paid off. You have confirmed his connection to the murder. His reaction was a confession, but you have also walked directly into his trap. He has invited you to his home on his terms, surrounded by his men. You now have a clear antagonist, a man with motive, means, and opportunity. But you also have a problem. Scourus has a seemingly perfect alibi. Menander, the Bathish informant, had mentioned it offhandedly. A public dinner party on the night of the murder. An alibi, or testimonium, was a powerful tool in Roman courts. If a man of high standing could produce several witnesses to swear he was with them at the time of a crime, it was nearly impossible to convict him. The testimony of a dozen low-born witnesses would mean nothing against the word of two senators. You need to break that alibi. You leave the forum, the noise in the crowds fading behind you. The setting sun casts long shadows, and the weight of Scourus' invitation settles on you. He thinks you are a common extortionist, a loose end to be tied up. He doesn't realize you are investigating a murder. Your goal tonight is not to collect a debt. It's to find a flaw in his story, a crack in his perfect alibi, and to get out his villa alive. The invitation to Scourus' villa feels like a countdown timer. You have a few hours before you must walk into the lion's den. Your mind is a whirlwind. The case against the senator is strong, but circumstantial. You have motive, the debt, the rivalry over Hebe. You have his panicked reaction in the forum, a near confession. But he has an alibi, a wall of witnesses that will be almost impossible to breach in a formal court. And you have an invitation that is almost certainly a trap. You feel a profound sense of being outmaneuvered, of playing a game whose rules are written by the powerful. In moments like these, when logic and evidence reach a dead end, Romans often turn to another, older source of guidance, the will of the gods. You are not a particularly devout man. You see the state religion for what it often is, a tool for political control, a series of rituals to keep the masses in line. But you also know that in a world filled with uncertainty, a little divine insight, or at least the appearance of it, can be a powerful weapon. And right now, you need any weapon you can get. You make your way to a small, unassuming temple tucked away near the Capitoline Hill. This isn't one of the grand, state-sponsored edifices. It's a private place frequented by those seeking more personal, and often more ambiguous, forms of divination. You are here to see a Haruspex. The Haruspex is a specialist in a very particular, and frankly, very messy form of prophecy. He reads the future by examining the entrails of sacrificed animals. This practice, known as Haruspicinae, was not originally Roman. It was an ancient art inherited from the Etruscans, the civilization that dominated Italy before the rise of Rome. While some sophisticated Romans looked down on it as a rustic superstition, it remained a deeply embedded part of their religious life. No major state decision was made without first consulting the omens, often through the liver of a sheep. The idea that the gods wrote their intentions on the organs of animals was, to them, perfectly logical. You pay the temple attendant a modest fee, which covers the cost of a chicken. A few minutes later, you are ushered into a small, smoky chamber. The air is thick with the smell of incense and blood. The Haruspex is an old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes cloudy with what could be wisdom or cataracts. He doesn't ask your name or your problem. He simply nods at the chicken, which is dispatched quickly and professionally by an acolyte. The acolyte places the still warm entrails on a bronze tablet etched with a map of the heavens. The old Haruspex leans over, his focus entirely on the liver. The liver was considered the most important organ, a microcosm of the universe. He pokes at it with a thin bronze rod, his brow furrowed in concentration. The chamber is silent except for the crackle of the incense burners. You wait, feeling a strange mix of skepticism and morbid curiosity. Finally, the old man straightens up. The liver is troubled, he says, his voice a dry rustle. It is swollen on the side of the enemy. This indicates a powerful, malevolent force working against you. No great surprise there. That much you knew already. But, he continues, pointing the rod at a specific spot. The gallbladder is dark, but full. This suggests hidden poison, a secret that is festering. A truth that, if revealed, will be bitter, but necessary for health to be restored. Hidden poison, the blackmail ledger, the secrets of the powerful. It's vague enough to mean anything, but it resonates. He then traces a line along the surface of the organ. See this fissure? It runs towards the protuberance we call the head of the liver. This signifies a journey, a path that leads to the head of the problem. But the path is crossed by many small marks. These are obstacles, lies. The path is not straight. He falls silent again, staring intently. And this is most unusual. He points to a small, discolored spot near the edge. A spot of blackness where there should be healthy tissue. A blight. It is small, easily missed, but it corrupts the tissue around it. It speaks of a small detail, a minor flaw in a larger structure, that threatens to bring the whole thing down. A small, easily missed detail. A minor flaw. H.E.S. talking about Scaurus' alibi. You came here seeking a sign, a piece of supernatural guidance, and this strange, bloody ritual has given you something surprisingly concrete, a confirmation of your own instincts. You shouldn't be looking for a way to smash through the senator's alibi. You should be looking for the tiny, overlooked crack in its foundation. There is one more thing the Haruspex says, his cloudy eyes finally meeting yours. The organ is slick with an excess of bile. This is an omen of rage. There is great anger surrounding this situation. Not just the anger of your enemy, but the anger of the victim. The spirit of the dead man is not at rest. He demands justice. Whether the Romans truly believed the ghosts of the unavenged dead could haunt the living is a topic of some debate among classicists. While their literature is full of ghosts and spirits, official religious practice was more focused on appeasing the gods than communicating with the deceased. But in the popular imagination, the idea of a restless spirit, A lemur was a very real and terrifying possibility. The idea that Gay assessed ghost is watching, demanding you succeed, sends a small shiver down your spine. You thank the old man and give him a few extra coins for his trouble. You step out of the temple, blinking in the fading sunlight, the smell of blood and incense clinging to your clothes. The experience was unsettling, primal, and bizarrely hopeful. You didn't receive a magical answer. The entrails didn't spell out the killer's name, but the ritual has focused your mind. You have your mission for the evening. Go to Scour Assess Villa, survive, and find the small, corrupting flaw in his story, the head of the liver, the hidden poison, the tiny spot of blackness. The omens have confirmed your strategy. You feel a renewed sense of purpose. You are no longer just a man walking into a trap. You are a hunter, armed with secret knowledge, and, if the old man is to be believed, the anger of a restless spirit on your side. You head home for a quick meal and to prepare for the night ahead. The meeting on the Palatine Hill awaits. Before heading to Scour Assess Villa, you make one final stop. Your brief, terrifying encounter in the forum made one thing painfully clear. This case will not be solved in an alley or a brothel. It will end in the realm of law and politics. And in that arena, you are hopelessly outmatched. You need an expert. In Rome, this doesn't mean a lawyer in the modern sense, a man who pores over legal texts. It means an orator, a master of rhetoric. Roman trials were not primarily about evidence or precedent, they were about persuasion. A trial was a performance, and the best performer usually won. The man you need is Titus Pomponius Atticus, a brilliant, cynical, and ferociously expensive orator known for his ability to demolish witnesses and sway juries with his silver tongue. You find him in his study, a room lined not with law books, but with scrolls of Greek philosophy and history. Atticus is a man who understands that winning a case is about understanding human nature, not just the 12 tables of Roman law. He is reclining on a couch, dictating a letter to a scribe. He dismisses the scribe and regards you with an amused, intelligent gaze. So Atticus begins without preamble. The little bird that sings in the forum tells me you poked a bear today. A very large, very powerful bear named Scarus. News travels faster than a chariot in this city. I needed to see if the bear would roar, you reply, and did it. It invited me to its cave for dinner. Atticus lets out a short, dry laugh. An invitation you will, of course, decline, unless you have a sudden desire to be buried in his garden. I have to go, you say. It is the only way to get close enough to break his alibi. You then quickly lay out the entire case, the murder, the blackmail codex, the rivalry over Hebe, the public threat, Scour Assess reaction in the forum, and his alibi at dinner party with fellow senators on the night of the murder. Atticus listens patiently, his fingers deep lead. When you finish, he is silent for a long moment. You have a strong motive and a mountain of circumstantial evidence, he says finally. But you have no direct proof. No witness saw Scourus plunge the knife. No one saw him give the order. And he has the best kind of alibi, a wall of unimpeachable, high-status witnesses. So we have no case. You ask, a knot of frustration tightening in your gut. I did not say that, Atticus replies, a glint in his eye. I said you have no current case. In a Roman court, the facts are only the clay. The orator is the sculptor. This is a fundamental point that many outside of Rome fail to grasp. Our legal system is adversarial in the extreme. It is not an inquisitorial search for the truth. It is a battle between two narratives. The jury, often composed of dozens or even hundreds of citizens, doesn't vote on guilt or innocence based on a cold reading of the evidence. They vote for the story they find more compelling, more believable, more emotionally resonant. Your story is good. It has greed, lust, and betrayal. But his story, the story of a respected senator, but his peers, is simple and strong. He gets up and begins to pace. We cannot attack the alibi head on. If we accuse a dozen senators of lying to protect a murderer, we will be laughed out of court. We would become the villains of the story. No, we must do as the horror specs told you. We must find the small flaw, the detail that feels wrong. What am I looking for, you asked? Contradiction, Atticus says, his voice sharp. When you are at his villa tonight, assuming you survive, do not listen to the broad strokes of the alibi. Listen to the small things. Who poured the wine? What was the entertainment? Did anyone leave the room, even for a moment? A story told by a dozen different people will inevitably develop small inconsistencies. That is our target. He stops pacing and looks at you, and you must look for character. Does Scourus seem like a man capable of meticulous planning, or is he a man of passion? Would he hire professionals, or would he, in a fit of rage, do the deed himself? The baker said the killers were professionals, you recall. A baker's opinion, Atticus dismisses. We need more. Your job tonight is to be a sponge. Absorb the atmosphere, the relationships, the tiny, seemingly irrelevant details. And for the love of Jupiter, find a way to talk to someone who was at that dinner. Not Scourus himself, but another guest. Someone less invested, perhaps someone who dislikes him. This is practical, actionable advice. It's a strategy. And what if I find this flaw, you ask? What's the next step? Then you bring it to me, Atticus says, and I will weave it into a story. I will stand before the jury and I will paint a picture. I will show them the arrogant senator, humiliated by a merchant, drowning in debt, consumed by rage. I will turn his alibi from a shield into a sword against him. I will ask the jury, why do his friends remember the color of the wine, but not the look of fear in their host's eyes as he slipped away for an hour to commit a murder? He is performing for you now, giving you a preview of his art. It's mesmerizing. But what about the law? You ask, thinking of the complexities. Atticus smiles. The law is a tool. It is not the master. Roman law, especially criminal law, was surprisingly unsystematic. There was no unified legal code like we might imagine. It was a patchwork of statutes, senatorial decrees, and judicial precedent. A skilled orator could navigate this maze, highlighting the laws that helped his case and conveniently ignoring those that didn't. Historians often debate whether this system promoted justice or simply rewarded the best public speaker. I, for one, have always found it to be excellent for business. He walks you to the door. Go to your party, investigate. Be charming, be observant, be invisible. But above all, be careful. Scourus is a cornered animal. And remember, if you get into trouble, the fee for extracting a client from a senator's private dungeon is triple my usual rate. With that cynical piece of advice, he sends you on your way. You leave his villa feeling both terrified and emboldened. You are not just one man against a senator anymore. You are the forward scout for a legal assault, armed with a clear mission from the sharpest legal mind in Rome. The upcoming dinner party is no longer just a trap. It's your battlefield. The Palatine Hill at night is a different world. The air is cooler, cleaner, and carries the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle from the meticulously manicured gardens. Torches held in ornate bronze brackets line the wide, paved road, casting a golden, flickering light on the imposing facades of Rome's most powerful families. This is the geography of power, and you feel like a trespass with every step you take. Scourus' villa is, as expected, magnificent. You're greeted at the door, not by a brutish guard, but by a polite, impeccably dressed slave who checks your name against a list you know you're not on. The master is expecting you, he says, his tone betraying no surprise. He leads you through a stunning atrium, past a gurgling fountain and under a ceiling painted with scenes from Greek mythology. The party is in a large, semi-enclosed peristyle garden. A few dozen guests, all men, are reclining on couches arranged in the traditional triclinium formation. The air hums with the low murmur of conversation, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of silver cups. Slaves move silently among the guests, refilling wine cups and offering platters of exotic appetizers. You see Scourus at the center of the most prominent couch, holding court. He sees you enter, and his eyes meet yours for a brief, cold moment. It's a look of acknowledgement and dismissal. He makes no move to greet you, instead turning back to his conversation. The message is clear. You are here on his suffranes. You are to wait. This suits your plan perfectly. You find an out-of-the-way spot near a column, accepting a cup of wine from a slave more to have something to do with your hands than to drink it. You are the invisible man, the low-status guest no one pays attention to, and from this vantage point, you can observe. You scan the faces, looking for anyone you might recognize from the blackmail ledger. You spot the other senators whose names were listed, both laughing and drinking with Scourus. They are part of the club, bound by shared debts and secrets. They will not be the crack in the alibi. Your opportunity comes in the form of a minor senator named Publius Servilius. He is older with a perpetually worried expression, sitting on the edge of the least important couch. He looks uncomfortable, out of place among the boisterous, backslapping camaraderie of Scour SS inner circle. You remember from Atticus' briefing that Servilius is a man of modest means and old-fashioned principles, likely here out of political necessity rather than genuine friendship. He is your target. You drift over to his side, adopting the air of a fellow outsider. A magnificent party, you say. By way of introduction, Senator Scouris is a most generous host. Servilius gives a start, surprised to be addressed. Indeed, he says, his response lukewarm. He has a flair for these things. I was at his last gathering as well. You lie, testing the waters. The one a few nights ago, another splendid affair. At the mention of the party, Servilius's face clouds over. Yes, that one. He takes a long sip of his wine. The entertainment was particularly memorable. You press, throwing out a blind guess. Servilius lets out a small, bitter snort. Memorable. I suppose you could call it that. A second-rate poetry citing a dreadful epic about the founding of Rome. I swear, I thought my ears were going to bleed. Scaurus has terrible taste in poetry. This is it. A small, genuine detail. A kernel of truth. I agree, you say, feigning camaraderie. I was seated in the back. Did you notice what time the poetry reading ended? I had to slip away early. Servilius thinks for a moment. Oh, it went on forever. At least 2 hours. Scaurus insisted. No one was allowed to leave until the poor man had finished his final, agonizing verse. We were all trapped. It must have been close to the 4th hour of the night when it finally ended. The 4th hour of the night. That's late. Gaius was killed sometime after midnight. If a 2-hour poetry reading began after the main course, it could provide a solid block of time where everyone was accounted for. The alibi is holding. But then Servilius adds something else, a throwaway comment. The only mercy was that Scaurus himself seemed as bored as the rest of us. He slipped out halfway through, said he needed to consult a document in his study. He was gone for quite a while. Your heart begins to beat faster. This is the crack, the small spot of blackness the horror specs saw on the liver. He left. During the performance he insisted on, for the better part of an hour. It's a Servilius grumbles. His study is at the back of the villa. Private entrance to the garden and from there to the street. Lucky man. I wish it had an urgent document to consult. An hour. A private entrance to the street. It's more than enough time for a man to slip out of his own party, cross the Palatine, descend into the sub-URA, commit a murder, and return, all while his guests are trapped listening to bad poetry. Scaurus didn't have an alibi, he had created one. He used the boring poet as a cover, a way to pin all his guests in one place while he was gone. You thank Servilius for the conversation and drift away before you draw any more attention. You have what you came for. You have shattered the alibi. Just as you are about to try and slip away, a heavy hand lands on your shoulder. It's one of Scaurus's hulking bodyguards. The master will see you now, he says, his voice a low rumble. He leads you away from the party, through the garden, and into the very studies Servilius had mentioned. Scaurus is waiting for you, alone. The friendly host is gone. In his place is the cold, ruthless predator you met in the forum. You've had your fun, Scaurus says, his voice dangerously soft. You've mingled with your betters. Now, give me the ledger. I don't have it with me, you say truthfully. I foolish lie, he sneers. You wouldn't come here without your bargaining chip. He takes a step closer. I am a patient man, but my patience has its limits. You have two choices. You give me the book, I give you a bag of gold, and you disappear from Rome forever. Or, you refuse, and you simply disappear. No one will miss a man like you. The threat is no longer veiled. The trap has been sprung. But as you stand there facing him, you notice something. On his desk among the scrolls and styluses is a small, ornate dagger, its handle inlaid with ivory. It's a letter opener, a rich man's toy, but its blade is sharp, and on the ivory handle, you see a small, dark stain. It could be anything. Think, Wait. Or it could be old blood. You now have a choice of your own. You could try to bargain to bluff your way out, or you could reveal what you know. You decide to take the risk. The ledger is safe, you say, your voice steady. But it's not the ledger you should be worried about. You should be worried about the poet, and the hour you were missing from your own party, and what a man can accomplish in an hour, with a private exit and a good pair of sandals. Scour's face freezes. The color drains from it. You've just told him that you know, not just about the debt, but about the mechanics of his alibi. You've taken away his shield. Before he can react, you hear a commotion from the garden. Shouts. The sound of running feet. The party is breaking up in confusion. A moment later, your heart nearly stops. A small, cloaked figure appears in the doorway of the study. A figure you recognize from the baker's description. The mysterious fourth person from the murder scene. But it's no ghost. It's Gaius Mirana's widow, Marcia. And in her hand, she holds a bloody knife. The scene in the study freezes for a heartbeat at a blow of pure show. There's you, the cornered investigator. There's Scourus, the exposed senator, his face a mask of disbelief. And there's Marcia, the grieving widow, standing in the doorway, her aristocratic composure shattered, holding a small, bloody dagger. It's not the ornate letter opener from Scourus' desk, it's a simple, utilitarian blade. He confessed, she cries out, her voice raw with a grief that has finally boiled over into rage. She's not looking at you, but at the ghost of the party behind her. I heard him. He admitted he owed Gaius money. Her words are a chaotic jumble, but the implication is clear. She must have followed you here, listened in on your conversation with Servilius, or perhaps even your confrontation with Scaurus. She heard enough to believe Scaurus was the killer. In her grief-stricken state, she has done something rash. The commotion in the garden was just the party breaking up. It was the sound of a senator's attendant being stabbed by a madwoman. Scaurus, ever the politician, recovers first. He sees his opportunity, a golden path out of the disaster you've created for him. Sees her, he bellows to his gods, who are now rushing into the study. She's insane. She's attacked my servant. She's the killer. She murdered her own husband and now she's trying to blame me. It's a brilliant, ruthless spirit. In an instant, he has recast the entire narrative. Marcia is no longer the avenging widow. She's a hysterical murderer. He is no longer the prime suspect. HES the victim of her insane rampage. The guards grab Marcia, who struggles for a moment before collapsing into sobs. The bloody knife clattering to the marble floor. She has, in her desperate attempt to find justice, destroyed any chance of achieving it through you. She has created a public spectacle, and in Rome, a spectacle always overwhelms the truth. You are now irrelevant. A low-status investigator whose testimony means nothing against a senator and a hysterical, violent noblewoman. You need to get out now, before you're bundled up as part of the conspiracy. You back away slowly towards the private garden exit Servilius had mentioned. Scaurus is too busy directing his men, playing the part of the wronged victim, to notice you. You slip through the door, into the cool night air of the garden, your heart pounding against your ribs. You don't stop running until the grand villas of the Palatine are far behind you. You find a quiet, dark corner in the Forum Boa room, the cattle market by the river, to catch your breath and to try to make sense of the chaos. The case has been turned completely upside down. Scaurus, who you are certain is the real killer, now has the perfect scapegoat. Marcia will be charged. With her public outburst in the stabbing of the servant, no one will believe her innocence. Atticus himself couldn't win that case. As you sit there, the pieces of the puzzle shift and reform in your mind. Marcia's actions were born of grief and desperation. But what if there was more to it? You recall your first meeting with her. Her unnatural calmness, her icy composure. You had thought it was suspicious then. What if it wasn't the composure of a woman hiding guilt, but the composure of a woman who had already decided on a course of action? A woman who was planning her own separate investigation, or her own revenge. You think back to the baker's testimony. The mysterious fourth figure, slender, cloaked, who appeared after the killers left and knelt by Gaius' body. He had described the figure as small. It could have been Marcia. Why would she be there? To confirm he was dead. To look for something. She touched his hand, the baker said. The hand that was missing the signet ring. Was she looking for the ring? Or was she placing something there? The brothel token. A stunning, terrible thought hits you. What if the brothel token wasn't on Gaius' body originally? What if Marcia, knowing of her husband's infidelity with Hebe, planted it there? It would be a cruel, posthumous act of revenge, a way to shame him even in death. But more than that, it would be a brilliant piece of mysterious hidden. It would send any investigation like yours down a false path, a path leading to the sub-URA, to brothels and petty rivalries, and away from the real motive. But what was the real motive, if not the blackmail ledger in the feud with Scaurus? You pull out the secret codex you've been carrying all this time. You'd been so focused on Scaurus' name that you'd barely given the other entries a second thought. You flip through the pages again under the faint moonlight, and then you see it. An entry you had skimmed over before. A loan not as large as Scaurus', but significant. The name next to it makes your blood run cold. Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix. Not the famous dictator Sulla who had been dead for decades, but his great-grandson. A young, ambitious man known for his decadent lifestyle and, more importantly, for being Marcia's brother. Family ties in Rome were everything. The concept of familia extended beyond the nuclear family to include a wide network of relatives, all bound by mutual obligation. An insult to one member was an insult to all. A debt owed by one member brought shame upon the entire clan. Marcia's brother was deeply in debt to her own husband. This changes everything. This wasn't a crime of political ambition or thwarted lust. This was a family matter. Gaius was threatening to ruin his own brother-in-law. For a proud aristocratic family like Marcia's, this would be an unforgivable insult. It wasn't just about money. It was about honor. You remember the pressed asphodel flower, the symbol of death. You had assumed it was a threat Gaius had received, or one he was making. But what if it was a memento, a symbol of a promise? The use of subtle symbols and coded messages in Roman correspondence is well documented, though often hard for modern historians to fully decode. Without context, a symbol can mean anything. But now, you have the context. What if Marcia had put it there? A promise to her brother that she would solve his problem. Your theory about Marcia planting the brothel token now seems much more plausible. It was a masterful deception. She knew of her husband's secret life and used it to create a false trail. She sent you, and the world, chasing after senators and prostitutes, while the real motive was buried in her own family's dirty laundry. Her dramatic, hysterical attack on Scaurus tonight might even have been calculated. A final, desperate act to frame a convenient enemy and obscure the truth forever. The case is no longer about proving Scaurus guilty. It's about untangling a dark, domestic conspiracy. You have two killers still at large, a mastermind in Marcia who is about to be tried for the wrong crime, and her brother, the debtor, lurking in the shadows. And you are the only one who knows the whole story. But who would believe you? The city is quiet now, settled into the deep slumber of the post-midnight hours. The air by the Tiber is cool and damp. You've been sitting in the shadows of the market for what feels like an eternity, the revelation about Marcia and her brother replaying in your mind. The elegant, simple theory of Scaurus as the killer has been replaced by a messy, complicated web of family honor, debt, and deception. Your primary witness is a baker who is terrified to speak. Your primary piece of evidence is a secret ledger that implicates half the Senate. And your new prime suspect is a woman who is currently in custody for attacking a senator. A story that is undoubtedly spreading through the city like wildfire. You are back to square one, but this time the square is on fire. There is one thread, however, that you haven't pulled. A thread that has bothered you from the beginning. In all of this, the investigation, the chase, the confrontation, there's a class of people who are always present but never heard: the slaves. The slave boy like Amdes who brought you the news. The doorman at Gaius' villa. The attendants at the bathish. The serving slaves at Scaurus' party. They are the invisible gears that make the city turn. They see everything, hear everything, yet their testimony is worthless in a Roman court. This is one of the most brutal and frustrating realities of the Roman legal system. A slave could not give evidence unless it was extracted under torture. The belief was that their loyalty to their master was so absolute They would lie to protect him unless forced by extreme pain to tell the truth. Historians still debate the rationale behind this cruelty. Was it pure prejudice or a twisted, pragmatic attempt to get at the truth in a society built on human bondage? The result was the same. A vast reservoir of potential knowledge was legally inaccessible. But you are not in a courtroom. You are in the middle of a private investigation, and you don't operate by the Senate's rules. You think of one slave in particular. He, the courtesan at the gilded cage, had mentioned that Gaius was her protector, but she herself was owned by Lyra. There must be other slaves in Gaius's household who knew his routines, his moods, his secrets, who saw him the day he died. You make your way back towards the Kellian Hill, moving through the sleeping city. The guards at the gate of Gaius's villa are tense and alert, rattled by the night's events. But they know you, and they know you worse, sanctioned by the family. They let you pass. The house is dark, save for a few flickering oil lamps. The controlled chaos of the morning has been replaced by a thick, heavy silence. The news of Marcia's arrest has surely reached them. The household is now not only without a master, but also without a mistress. They are truly rudderless, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. This might make them afraid to talk, or it might make them desperate too. You don't go to the main house. You head around the back, to the slave quarters. It's a series of small windowless cells, a stark contrast to the opulence of the main villa. You find Des, the young Greek slave who first brought you the news, huddled on a straw pallet. He is terrified. "What's going to happen to us?" he whispers, his eyes wide in the gloom. With the master dead and the mistress taken away, it's the question on every slave's mind. When a household is dissolved, the slaves are sold off, split up, their futures entirely uncertain. In trying to find the truth, like Des, you say, your voice gentle. "That's the only way to bring stability back to this house. I need your help. I need you to tell me about the master's last day. Anything at all that was out of the ordinary." He hesitates, the ingrained fear of speaking out warring with his desperation. "The law says I can't listen to you," you say, taking a risk, "but the gods gave you eyes and ears. I believe they want you to use them. I will not repeat what you say in a court. This is for me alone. Do understand?" This seems to reassure him. The distinction between the state's law and a higher, moral law gives him a space to speak. He was angry, like Des says, his voice barely audible. All day, he had a visitor in the morning, a man I had never seen before. He was not a nobleman. He was rough, like a soldier or a bodyguard. "One man or two?" you ask, thinking of the baker's story. "Two," he says. "They came together. The other one waited in the atrium." The master took the first one into his study. There was shouting. The master was yelling about broken promises and family honor. The visitor was quiet, but his voice was hard, like stones grinding together. Two men, one of whom met with Gaius. This doesn't sound like professional killers coming to take a job. This sounds like a confrontation. "What happened when they left?" you ask. The master was furious. He smashed a vase. I have never seen him do that. He paced in his study for an hour. Then he called for his cloak and said he was going out. He didn't say where. This is a new piece of the timeline. The confrontation happened in the morning, hours before his death. It explains his foul mood, which he had mentioned. This visitor, you press. Can you describe him? Sure. A scar on his cheek. He walked with a slight limp. A limp. This is a real identifying detail. Did you hear a name? Like Des shakes his head. No. The master just called him soldier. A soldier with a limp and a scar on his cheek. It's not much, but it's something. A tangible lead. These were not the shadowy, professional CRII you imagined. These were real men who came to the victim's house on the day of his murder. You have one more question. It's a long shot, but you have to ask. Like Des, the mistress, Marcia, did she have visitors recently? Anyone who was not a member of the family? He thinks for a moment. Yes, 2 days ago. The same two men, the one with the scar and the limp, and his quiet friend. They did not meet with the master that day. They met with the mistress, in the garden. They spoke for a long time. The blood in your veins turns to ice. The same two men. They met with Marcia 2 days ago, and then with Gaius on the morning of his murder. These are the killers, and they were not hired by Scaurus. They were hired by Marcia. The entire case snaps into focus with blinding, horrifying clarity. Marcia and her brother planned it all. They hired these two men. Marcia met with them to give the instructions. They then went to Gaius, likely to give him one last chance or to stage a fake confrontation to establish a pretext. When he refused whatever they demanded, they killed him later that night. Marcia's appearance at the murder scene was to plant evidence. It was to ensure the job was done. Her attack on Scaurus was the final, brilliant act, framing a plausible enemy to cover her tracks completely. You now understand the truth. But it's a truth that is buried under layers of deception and protected by a legal system that will not listen to your only witness. You have the story, but you have no proof that will stand up in court. You need to find the soldier with the lint. He is the only living person, aside from Marcia and her brother, who can connect all the pieces. And finding one specific ex-soldier in a city of 1 million people is a nearly impossible task. The search for a man with a limp and a scar in a city teeming with retired soldiers is like searching for a specific grain of sand on a beach. The Roman army was a colossal machine, constantly churning out veterans who, after 20 years of service, were discharged with a small pension or a plot of land. Many of them, restless and unsuited for civilian life, drifted to the capital, finding work as bodyguards, enforcers, or simple hired muscle. They were a common sight in the city's tougher districts. You feel a familiar sense of hopelessness creeping in. You have the truth, but the truth is a ghost. You cannot prove Marcia's conspiracy. You cannot save her from being convicted for a crime. She did commit stabbing Scaurus' servant, which will conveniently close the case on her husband's murder as well. The system is about to consume her, and in doing so, it will protect the real conspiracy. You need a new angle. You need to stop thinking about the crime and start thinking about the victim again. Gaius Murene, the respectable merchant, the secret loan shark, the man who carved wooden birds. Lycomdes called the killer soldier. Gaius had shouted about family honor and broken promises. What if the connection wasn't just about the hiring of a random ex-legionary? What if the connection was older, more personal? You force yourself to recall every detail you've learned about Gaius. Hebert said he never spoke of his past except for one small detail, his childhood on a farm. It's not much to go on. A man's past is a locked room, and you don't have the key. But then you remember something else, a detail you skimmed over in his office. While searching his business scrolls, you seen them, his official citizen records. Every Roman citizen had them. You hadn't paid them any mind at the time, focusing instead on the secret ledger. But those records would contain the basic facts of his life, his place of birth, his father's name, and, crucially, any record of military service. You have to go back to the villa. It's a risky move. The house is now a crime scene in a high-profile case. It will likely be sealed by the city magistrates, but it's a risk you have to take. You arrive at the villa just after dawn. As you feared, to LIC tours the official attendants to a magistrate. Symbols of state power are standing guard at the gate. They are impassive, ceremonial, but their presence makes the house impenetrable. You can't go in the front. You circle the high outer wall, looking for another way. You find it at the back where the garden wall borders a small, overgrown public lane. A large cypress tree grows close to the wall, its thick branches offering a precarious ladder. It's undignified, and if you're caught, you'll be arrested as a common thief. But you have no choice. With a deep breath, you scale the tree, its rough bark scraping your hands. You swing yourself over the top of the wall and drop silently into the soft soil of a flower. You're in. You crouch for a moment listening. The garden is silent. You creep towards the house, moving from shadow to shadow, your heart pounding. You slip into the villa through a side door used by the kitchen staff. The house is eerily quiet. You make your way to Gaius' study. The scroll cubbyholes are just as you left them. You quickly find the official records bundled together and tied with a red ribbon. You unroll the first scroll. It's his birth registration. Nothing surprising there. The second is his marriage certificate to Marcia. The third is his military discharge. Honeste missio. Gaius Murene was not a lifelong merchant. For 20 years, from the age of 17, he had been a soldier. Not just a soldier, but a centurion in the Legio ex Gemina, one of Rome's most famous and battle-hardened legions. This is a significant revelation. A centurion was the backbone of the Roman army, a career soldier responsible for the training, discipline, and lives of 80 men. They were known for being tough, pragmatic, and fiercely loyal to their legion. For a man to rise to this rank meant he was a seasoned, respected veteran. The idea that Gaius was once a hardened military commander completely changes your perception of him. He was just a bean counter, as Scaurus had mockingly called him. He was a warrior. The scroll lists his campaigns: Germania, Pannonia, the endless, brutal wars on the northern frontier. It lists his commendations for bravery. And then, at the end, it lists the reason for his discharge. He was wounded in his final battle, an injury that rendered him unfit for further service. You scan the document, your eyes racing over the formal Latin, and then you see it. A single line in the report detailing the incident in which he was wounded. His unit was ambushed by a Germanic tribe. They were outnumbered. His Optio, his second in command, panicked and broke formation, leading to a partial collapse of the line. Gaius was wounded while trying to rally his men. The Optio's name is listed in the report: Gnaeus Antonius Crispus. The report notes that Crispus was disciplined for cowardice and discharged in disgrace, losing most of his pension. But it also notes that he suffered a permanent injury in the fight, a spear wound to his leg that left him with a severe limp. A soldier with a limp. The pieces slammed together with the force of a physical impact. The killer wasn't a random thug Marcia hired. He was Gaius's own disgraced former subordinate, Gnaeus Antonius Crispus, the man whose life and career Gaius had ruined on a battlefield years ago. This adds a powerful new layer to the conspiracy. Marcia didn't just hire a killer. She found the one man in the world with a deep, personal, and legitimate grudge against her husband. She didn't have to offer him just money, she could offer him revenge. The confrontation, like Ambiance overheard, now makes perfect sense. Gaius shouting about broken promises and family honor. He must have recognized Crispus. He wasn't just arguing with a hired goon. He was facing a ghost from his past, a man he had shamed. The broken promise might have been some old battlefield oath. The family honor was Gaius's fury that his own wife would conspire with a man he considered a coward and a traitor. The bonds and grudges formed in the legions were lifelong. The concept of virtus, courage, and dignitas, dignity, were paramount to a soldier. To be accused of cowardice was the ultimate stain, a shame that could never be erased. Historians often emphasize the loyalty within a legion, but the rivalries and hatreds could be just as intense and lasting. You found him. You have his name. Gnaeus Antonius Crispus. He is no longer an anonymous face in the crowd. He is a man with a history, a motive, and a name. All you have to do now is find him. But a name is a much better starting point than a scar and a limb. The official military archives in the Forum might have a record of his last known address, where his meager pension was sent. You carefully rattle the scrolls and place them back in their cubbyhole. You have what you came for. You slip out of the house the same way you came in, your mind racing. The case has become a story of old wounds, of a betrayal on a distant battlefield echoing years later in a dark Roman alley. You are no longer just investigating a murder. You are uncovering a tragedy that began decades ago in the forests of Germania. Armed with a name, you feel a renewed surge of purpose. The city is vast. Anonymous sprawl suddenly seems navigable. Gnaeus Antonius Crispus. The name is your compass. Your first stop is the Aerorum Militaire, the military treasury, located in the Roman Forum. This is where the state managed the pensions for its hundreds of thousands of veterans. It's a long shot, but they might have a record of where Crispus's dishonorable discharge payments, what little there were being sent. You approach a harried-looking clerk, a man drowning in a sea of papers. After a significant bribe and a lengthy wait, he returns from a dusty back room with a single wax tablet. On it is the information you need. The pension for Gnaeus Antonius Crispus was paid out to a residence in the Transtiberium, the district across the Tiber. It's a rough, insular neighborhood, known for its immigrant communities, tanneries, and lower-class tenements. The tablet even includes a specific address, As you walk towards the Trans-Steep Barrier, crossing the old pond sub-LICIS bridge, the character of the city changes. The marble and travertine of the Forum give way to brick, wood, and grime. The sounds of Latin are interspersed with a babble of other tongues: Syriac, Greek, Hebrew. This is Rome's melting pot, a place where people come to disappear. It's the perfect place for a disgraced soldier to hide. You find the address, a dilapidated 5-story insula that looks like it might collapse if someone sneezes too hard. You climb the rickety wooden stairs, the smell of boiled cabbage and damp brought thick in the air. You find the door to Crispus's apartment and listen. Silence. You knock. No answer. You try the handle. It's unlocked. You push the door open and step inside. The room is tiny, bare, and meticulously clean. A single straw mattress lies in the corner, its blanket folded with military precision. A small wooden table and a single stool are the only furniture. There are no personal effects, no decorations, nothing to suggest a life is being lived here. It's the room of a man just passing through, a ghost. But on the table lies a single object, a half-finished wooden bird. It's carved from the same light-colored wood as the birds you saw in Hebe's room. The style is identical. It's unmistakable. Your mind struggles to process this. Why would Crispus, the killer, be carving the same signature object as Gaius, the victim? It makes no sense. Unless the story you've constructed is wrong. You pick up the bird. The knife work is hesitant, clumsy. It's the work of a beginner. It's not the work of the man who carved the flawless collection in Hebe's box. It's the work of someone trying to copy them. A cold dread begins to creep up your spine. You search the small room again, this time with a new sense of urgency. Tucked under the mattress, you find a small leather pouch. Inside is not gold, but a handful of documents. You pull them out. The first is a copy of a property deed. It transfers the ownership of a small farm in Umbria from Gaius Licinius Murone to Gnaeus Antonius Crispus. The transfer is dated 2 weeks ago. Gaius had given his old subordinate the farm. His childhood farm, perhaps. The second document is a letter. The handwriting is rough, unpracticed, but the words are clear. It's from Crispus to his sister. It reads, "Dearest sister, the gods have finally smiled upon us. The centurion has a conscience after all. He has given me back our family's land. The land his father stole from ours when we were boys. He says he wants to make amends for the past, not just for the battlefield, but for the old injustices. He is teaching me his craft, the carving, so I may have a trade. He is not the monster I remembered. He is trying to be a good man. I will be home soon. We can leave this filthy city forever." The entire case shatters into a million pieces. Crispus was the killer. He was the hired thug consumed by revenge. He was a man who had reconciled with his old commander. Gaius was just a ruthless loan shark. He was a man actively trying to atone for his past, both for the incident on the battlefield and for some older, deeper family feud over land. The carvings weren't just a hobby, they were a bridge, a way for him to teach his old enemy a new life. This changes everything. But if Crispus wasn't the killer, then who were the two men like Des saw? Who was the man with the scar and the limp? And then, the most horrifying possibility emerges. The limp, the scar. What if they weren't real? What if they were a disguise? What if Marcia, knowing the history between her husband and Crispus, hired two men to impersonate Crispus and his companion? It's a level of diabolical, cold-blood cunning that is almost unimaginable. She didn't just hire killers. She hired actors. She found two men and had them disguise themselves as the one person Gaius would have a heated, emotional, and public argument with. She engineered the confrontation that Lycum Des witnessed. She knew her husband's history better than anyone, and she used it to create a perfect, ready-made suspect. She laid a false trail not just for you, but for history itself. Crispus, the disgraced soldier, would be blamed, and no one would ever look at her or her brother. But the plan went wrong. You were the unforeseen complication. You didn't just accept the surface story. You dug deeper. You found Crispus, and now you're standing in his room holding the proof of his innocence. This letter, this is the first tangible, physical evidence you have found in this entire investigation. It's not a testimony that can be twisted or a circumstantial clue. It's a document, It's a piece of the truth written on papers. For all the power of oratory in Roman courts, a written document, a testament, or a chirograph carried immense weight. While they could be forged, a genuine, authenticated document was considered powerful proof. The challenge for historians is that so few of these personal, everyday documents survive. What we have are the grand inscriptions and the literary texts. The small, private papers that truly explain people's lives have mostly turned to dust. You are holding one of those rare, fragile pieces of reality. You know what you have to do. You have to find Crispus, Haitius, and danger. Marcia's plan has been exposed, and she or her brother or her allies will know that Crispus is the one person who can definitively prove his own innocence and, in doing so, unravel their entire conspiracy. His life is now in jeopardy. You carefully pocket the letter and the deed. You leave the apartment, the half-finished bird sitting on the table like a silent accusation. Your hunt for a killer has just become a race to save an innocent man. The Transiberium is waking up. The narrow streets are beginning to fill with vendors, dock workers, and craftsmen. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke and frying fish. You have the proof of Crispus's innocence in your tunic, a fragile shield against a tidal wave of deception. But proof is useless if the man it protects is dead. You have to find him before Marcia's associates do. Where does a man on the verge of leaving the city go? He settles his accounts. He says his goodbyes. He buys supplies for his journey. You start with the most obvious place, the local taverns. A soldier, even a reformed one, often finds comfort in the familiar camaraderie of a cheap wine shop. You move from one dingy establishment to another, showing Crispus's name written on a shard of pottery to the owners. You describe him, a man in his late 40s, military bearing with a limp. The first few innkeepers shake their heads, but in the fourth, the drunken goat, you get a nod of recognition. Crispus, I know him, the owner, a stout woman with arms like hams, says, wiping down the counter with a greasy rag. Quiet man, keeps to himself, comes in for a cup of watered wine in the evenings, pays his tab, never any trouble. Have you seen him today? Or last night? You ask, trying to keep the urgency out of your voice. Last night, yes. He was here, but he seemed agitated. Kept looking at the door, like he was expecting someone. Said he was leaving the city for good, going home to Umbria. She pauses, her expression clouding. Then 2 men came in looking for him. Your blood runs cold. What did they look like? Not from around here, she says. Too well dressed. They had the look of professional enforcers, the kind you don't ask questions of. They asked for Crispus. I said HED just left. They didn't seem to believe me. Looked around the place, then left. Gave me a bad feeling. They're already hunting him. You're only a few steps behind them. Did he say where he was going, you press? No, just that he was heading home. Said he had one last piece of business to take care of. Something about a gift for a friend. A gift for a friend. Ib, the wooden birds. Gaius was teaching him to carve, and he was the recipient of the lessons. It's the only personal connection he has in the city outside of Gaius. It's a desperate guess, but it's the only one you've got. You think the tavern owner and practically run out the door, heading back across the river. Your destination, the gilded cage. It's still early in the day, and the brothel is quiet. The same Thracian giant answers the door, his face a mask of suspicion. We're closed. I need to see Lyra, you say, your voice firm. It's a matter of life and death. Her life, the threat, crude as it is, works. Lyra appears a moment later, wrapped in a silk robe, her face etched with worry. The scandal involving Scaurus and Marcia has clearly taken its toll on her business. What is it now, she demands. Haven't you caused enough trouble? I'm not the one who caused it, you counter, but I'm the one who can end it. I need to know if News Antonius Crispus has been here. She looks at you, confused. Who? A friend of Gaius, an old soldier. He carves wooden birds. At the mention of the birds, her expression changes. The bird carver? Yes. He came here this morning asking for Hebe. He was nervous, said he had to leave the city, but wanted to give her a final gift. I told him he was seeing no one. Where did he go? I don't know. He seemed distraught. He just thanked me and left. She pauses, then adds, but as he was leaving, I saw two men across the street, watching the house. When he walked away, they followed him. You're out of time. They have him. You try to think. Where would they take him? Not a busy street. Not a public place. They would take him somewhere quiet, secluded. Somewhere a man can disappear. The river. The sprawling, half-abandoned warehouses and docks along the Tiber are notorious dumping ground for the city's inconvenient dead. You race towards the nearest commercial wharves, a maze of cranes, stacked amphorae, and gloomy cavernous warehouses. The air smells of fish tar and stagnant river water. You move through the labyrinth, your eyes scanning the shadows, listening for any sound out of the ordinary, and then you hear it. A grunt of pain followed by a low, menacing voice. It's coming from behind a tall stack of wine barrels. You creep closer, peering through a gap between two barrels. You see them. Two large men, dressed in dark, practical tunics. They match the tavern owner's description. They have Crispus pinned against the rough wooden wall of a warehouse. One of them is holding a knife to his throat. Crispus is not struggling. He is standing with a kind of resigned dignity, the bearing of a soldier who knows he is facing his end. "Where is the letter?" the first man growls. "The one the old centurion gave you. And the deed. Our employer wants them back. She is very thorough. So that's it. They're not just here to silence him. They're here to retrieve the evidence that exonerates him and implicates Marcia." "I don't know what you're talking about," Crispus says, his voice steady, though you can see the fear in his eyes. HES protecting the evidence. HES protecting the truth, even at the cost of his own life. A stubborn old soldier. The second man sneers. "We have ways of making you talk. You have to do something. You are one man against two armed professionals. A direct confrontation is suicide." You look around, frantic for a weapon, an advantage. Your eyes land on a large, heavy cargo hook hanging from a rope, part of a crane mechanism used to load barrels onto ships. The rope is tied off on a cleat nearby. You have an idea. A stupid, dangerous idea. You quietly untie the rope. The heavy hook, now free, begins to swing like a pendulum. You give the rope a hard tug, aiming the arc of the swing towards the two men. The massive iron hook swings through the air with a low whistle. The men hear it at the last second and look up, their eyes wide with alarm. The first man, the one with the knife, shoves Crispus aside and tries to dodge, but the hook catches him square in the shoulder. He screams in pain and goes down, clutching his shattered arm. The second man, momentarily stunned, turns towards you, his face a mask of rage. He draws his own knife and lunges. You have no weapon, nothing but the element of surprise. You do the only thing you can. You kick over the stack of barrels. The heavy wine barrels, each weighing hundreds of pounds, crash to the ground with a deafening boom. One of them rolls directly into the path of the charging thug, catching his legs and sending him sprawling. His head hits the hard, packed earth with a sickening thud, and he lies still. Silence. Crispus stares at you, his chest heaving, a mixture of shock and gratitude on his face. You look at the two downed men. One is unconscious, the other writhing in agony. You have won. Through sheer, desperate improvisation, you have survived. Who are you?" Crispus asks, his voice raspy. "A friend of a friend, you say. Your own adrenaline starting to fade, replaced by a deep, shuddering exhaustion. I have your letter. I know the truth. You saved the witness. You've neutralized the assassins. You have the final pieces of the puzzle. But the game isn't over. You still have to find a way to make the world believe a story that is so convoluted, so diabolical, that it sounds like a madman's fantasy. And your main suspect is a noble woman whose brother has the power to crush you like an insect. The aftermath of the fight at the docks is a mess of splintered barrels, spilled wine, and groaning men. You know the city watch will be here soon, drawn by the commotion. You can't be found here. You are, legally speaking, guilty of assault, no matter how justified. We have to go, you say to Crispus, grabbing his arm. No. He nods, still dazed, and you both melt back into the labyrinth of the Transtiberium, leaving the two hired thugs to their fate. You find a quiet, secluded spot in the courtyard of a small, forgotten temple to a minor river god. Here, surrounded by crumbling statues and weeds growing through the flagstones, you can finally talk. You pull out the letter and the deed and hand them to him. He takes them with a trembling hand, his eyes filling with tears as he looks at the proof of his redemption. I thought they were his men, Crispus says, his voice thick with emotion. When they came for me, I thought the centurion had betrayed me again, that this whole reconciliation was just a cruel trick. It was a trick, you say gently. Gaius was trying to do the right thing. He was killed for it. You quickly explain everything you've pieced together Marcia's plan, her brother's death. The way they used Crispus's history with Gaius to create the perfect scapegoat. As he listens, his face transforms from grief to a slow-burning, cold fury. She used my name, he says, his voice low and dangerous. She used my shame to cover her own crime. She dishonored me, and she dishonored the memory of a man who was trying to give me back my own honor. We have the proof, you say. This letter, your testimony. We can expose her. Crispus looks at you, his eyes hard. Expose her to who? To a court that will not listen to me. To a magistrate who will be paid off by her brother. Your proof is a piece of paper. Her proof is a mountain of gold and a powerful family name. We cannot win in their arena. They treat us right. A formal trial is a dead end. Atticus could be the most brilliant orator in Rome, but without a confession or an undeniable witness who won't be discredited, the case against Marcia and her brother is built on sand. They will paint Crispus as a disgruntled, lying ex-convict, and you as his co-conspirator. They will control the narrative. So what do we do, you ask? The familiar despair creeping back in. Let them get away with it. No, Crispus says, a new resolve in his voice. We don't play their game. We play ours. A soldier's game. He pauses. In the legions, when a politician's treachery got good men killed, we couldn't take him to court. But we had our own justice. We would make the truth known, not to the courts, but to the people. You begin to understand what H.E. is suggesting. The forum, he confirms. This isn't a legal battle anymore. It's a war for public opinion. Marcia has presented herself as a victim, a grieving widow who lashed out at the man she thought killed her husband. We need to show the people of Rome who she really is. It's an incredibly risky strategy. Taking a private grievance to the public square could easily backfire, resulting in charges of slander or inciting a riot. But it's also a uniquely Roman solution. The Roman Forum was more than just a marketplace or a political center. It was the stage for the city as daily drama. Public opinion, the fama or reputation of a person, was a powerful, tangible force. A senator could be ruined not by a lost court case, but by a well-timed, scandalous rumor. Orators would often publish their most damning speeches, distributing them to the public to win support. Graffiti, public poems, and hired hecklers were all tools in the constant, brutal war of reputations. What Crispus is proposing is a classic Roman maneuver. Bypass the corrupt official channels and take your case directly to the ultimate jury, the mob. Hell, you ask. We can't just stand on a box and start shouting. Her brother's men would have us killed before we finish the first sentence. We need a bigger voice than ours, Crispus says, his mind clearly working, the old centurion's tactical sense taking over. We need a powerful voice. Someone who hates Marcia's family as much as we do. We need an ally. And instantly. You know who he means. The man who has been publicly humiliated, framed, and almost ruined by this conspiracy. The man who is currently the city's biggest joke, but who still wields immense power and influence. Scaurus, you breathe. Exactly, Crispus says with a grim smile. Marcia made him her pawn. She used him, embarrassed him, and made him the villain of her story. A man like that will not forgive such an insult. His dignitas has been wounded. We don't need to convince him of the truth. We just need to give him the weapons to get his revenge. The plan is audacious, dangerous, and brilliant. You will go to the one man you thought was your enemy and make him your most powerful ally. You will give him the letter, the deed, and Crispus's testimony, not for justice, but for vengeance. He will not take the case to court. He will take it to the floor of the Senate. He will use his own legendary skills as an orator to destroy the reputation of Marcia's brother, Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix. He will read the letter aloud. He will present Crispus as a wronged war hero, and he will paint a picture of a decadent, honorless family that murders its own and frames its enemies. It's a complete reversal of your entire investigation. You are no longer trying to prove a crime to the state, you are orchestrating a political assassination. It's a desperate gamble, you say. We are desperate men, Crispus replies. Gaius was my centurion. He died trying to do right by me. I will not let his memory be tarnished. And I will not let his killer hide behind her wealth and her lies. This is my battle now, too. You look at the old soldier, his face set with a determination you haven't seen before. He is no longer the broken, disgraced man from the military record. He is Gnaeus Antonius Crispus, a soldier of Rome, and he is ready for one last fight. Your role has changed. You are no longer the investigator. You are now the strategist in a political war. Arranging a meeting with Senator Scaurus is surprisingly easy. You send a message through one of his many freedmen, stating only that you have a resolution to his recent public embarrassment, and the name of his true enemy. The reply comes within the hour, be at his villa at sundown. No threats this time. Just a simple direct command. You and Crispus walk up the Palatine Hill together. It's a strange alliance, the private investigator and the resurrected ghost, walking back into the den of the man you once considered your primary suspect. Crispus is dressed in the cleanest tunic he owns, his back straight, his limp barely noticeable. He looks every inch the veteran centurion. Scaurus receives you not in his garden or his study, but in a stark private chamber, bare of all ornamentation except for a large bust of one of his ancestors, a famous consul. He is alone. The arrogant, flamboyant host is gone, replaced by a cold, calculating politician. You have wasted my time before, Scaurus says, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. This time I expect results. You have one chance to convince me. You don't speak. Instead, you gesture to Crispus. This must be his story to tell. Crispus steps forward. He does not bow. He meets the senator's gaze as an equal. Senator, he begins, his voice clear and steady. My name is Gnaeus Antonius Crispus. I was a centurion in the 10th Legion, and I am the man you believe you have a quarrel with over the death of Gaius Murinae. Scaurus' eyes narrow, but he remains silent, listening. Crispus then lays out the entire story, starting from the old feud on the battlefield in Germania. He speaks with the simple, unadorned clarity of a soldier giving a field report. He talks of his disgrace, his years of poverty, and Gaius' recent, unexpected offer of reconciliation. He presents the deed to the farmer and the letter to his sister. He describes being impersonated, hunted, and almost killed by Marcia's men. He doesn't ask for pity. He doesn't make emotional appeals. He just states the facts. When he finishes, he places the letter and the deed on the table between them. This is the truth, Senator. You were not the target of Gaius Murinae's anger. You were a tool in his wife's ambition. She and her brother, Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, murdered him to clear a family debt. They used your public rivalry and my history to create a fog of lies. They have made a fool of you, and they have made a fool of Rome. Scaurus walks over to the table and picks up the letter. He reads it slowly, his expression unreadable. He examines the deed for a long moment. The only sound in the room is the crackling of the oil lamps. Finally, he looks up first at Crispus, then at you. A slow, dangerous smile spreads across his face. It's not a smile of warmth, but of predatory satisfaction. Her brother, he says softly, almost to himself, young Sulla. That arrogant Pico. He has been a thorn in my side in the Senate for months, blocking my proposal for the new grain subsidies. In that moment, you see the gears of the Roman political machine turn. This is no longer about murder. It's about advantage. It's about power. The truth of Gaius' death is secondary to the opportunity it presents, the chance for Scaurus to utterly destroy a political rival. You have brought me a gift, Scaurus says, his eyes gleaming. A weapon, a sharp one. We want justice, you say, feeling the need to remind him of the original purpose. And you shall have it. Scaurus replies smoothly, but justice in Rome takes many forms. A courtroom is only one of them. The Senate floor can be a far more effective venue. He begins to pace, energized, the politician in his natural element. This is perfect. Sulla thinks he is untouchable. His sister, Marcia, will be tried and convicted for her attack on my servant. The murder of her husband will be pinned on her as a crime of passion. The case will be closed. Everyone will move on. But then I will stand up in the Senate. I will not speak of murder. I will speak of honor, of the character of a man who seeks to lead us. It turns to Crispus. I will tell your story. The story of a brave soldier of the 10th, wronged and then redeemed. I will read your letter. I will hold up the steed. And then I will ask my dear colleague Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix to explain why his family conspires to frame a decorated veteran. I will ask him to explain why his sister hired thugs to hunt this good man through the streets. I will not accuse him of murder. I will simply destroy his reputation, his dignitas, piece by piece, in front of every senator in Rome. It's a masterclass in political maneuvering. He will use the truth, but wield it as a political weapon. He will champion Crispus, turning him into a symbol of wronged virtue, and use that symbol to bludgeon his enemy. But then, a new, unexpected player enters the game. That will not be enough, a quiet voice says from the doorway. You all turn. Standing there, cloaked and veiled as Hebe, the courtesan from the gilded quay. Beside Hurston's Lyra, the brothel owner, her face set and determined. Scaurus looks at them, stunned. What is the meaning of this? Lyra steps forward. The meaning, Senator, is that you are not the only one with a score to settle. When Marcia's conspiracy is revealed, my establishment will be ruined by the scandal. My name, my business, all of it, dragged through the mud. I will not allow that. And this girl, she says, placing a protective hand on Hebe's shoulder, has lost the only man who ever treated her with kindness. He pulls back her veil. Her face is pale, but her eyes are filled with a fire you haven't seen before. She is no longer the weeping, fragile victim. She holds a small, familiar-looking object in her hand. Hey, wooden bird. Gaius told me things, Hebe says, her voice shaking but clear. Secrets. He was afraid of his wife's family. He told me that her brother, Sulla, was not just in debt to him. He was involved in something far worse. A plot to illegally import grain from Egypt, bypassing the state monopoly and the taxes, using forged shipping manifests. Gaius had found proof. That is why they had to kill him. The debt was just the excuse. The grain supply, the cura annonii, was the lifeblood of Rome. Any threat to it, any hint of corruption or illegal profiteering, was one of the most serious crimes imaginable. It was a matter of national security. An accusation of this magnitude, if proven, would mean absolute ruin, exile, or even death. Suddenly, the stakes have been raised to a level you never imagined. This isn't just about a family murder or political slander. It's about a massive criminal conspiracy that threatens the stability of the state. He then holds up the little wooden bird. Gaius gave me this the night before he was killed. He said if anything happened to him, I should look inside it. He said the proof was with the bird. She hands the bird to Scaurus. He takes it, a look of confusion on his face. He examines the small carving. It's solid wood. He turns it over in his hands, and then he sees it. A tiny, almost invisible seam along the bird's back. Using his fingernail, he pries it open. The bird is hollow. Inside, nestled in the small cavity, is a tiny, tightly rolled piece of papyrus. A miniature scroll. Scaurus carefully unrolls it. His eyes widen as he reads. It's a shipping manifest, covered in names, dates, and figures. And at the bottom, a signature, Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix. It's the final piece of the puzzle. The smoking gun. Gaius, knowing he was in danger, had created one last, ingenious hiding place for the evidence against his brother-in-law, and entrusted it to the one person he knew he could trust. Scaurus looks up, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across his face. He now holds in his hand not just the means to ruin his rival's reputation, but the proof to send him into exile forever. The game has changed once again. The air in Scaurus's chamber is electric. The discovery of the miniature scroll has transformed the situation from a political squabble into a full-blown state-level conspiracy. What started as a simple murder investigation in a back alley has spiraled into a plot that touches the very foundation of Rome's stability, its grain supply. Scaurus holds the tiny papyrus as if it were the scepter of Jupiter himself. His mind is clearly working at lightning speed. calculating the angles, the opportunities. He is no longer just a man seeking revenge for a wounded ego. He is a statesman who has stumbled upon a conspiracy that could make his career. This, he says, his voice a low, reverent whisper. This changes everything. He looks at the unlikely group assembled before him. You, the dogged investigator. Crispus, the wronged soldier. Lyra, the pragmatic brothel madam. And Hebe, the court saint who held the key all along. You are a collection of outcasts and misfits, people from the fringes of Roman society. And yet you have brought down a conspiracy that the entire state machinery had missed. Sula's career is over, Scaurus declares, a chilling finality in his tone. But we must be careful. A man like him, when cornered, is more dangerous than a wounded boar. He has wealth. He has loyal freedmen. He has thugs on his payroll. If he gets even a whisper of what we know, he will try to silence us all. Permanently. The gravity of the situation settles upon the room. You have the truth, but the truth is a dangerous burden. Sulla is not just Marcia's brother. He is the great-grandson of a dictator, a man from a family accustomed to wielding absolute power and eliminating its enemies without a second thought. What is the plan, Lyra asks, ever the pragmatist. She is concerned with survival and the protection of her business and her charge. Scaurus begins to pace again, no longer just a politician, but a general planning a campaign. We cannot move immediately. A public accusation now would be my word against his. He would claim this document is a forgery. We need to lock him in a cage before he even knows HES trapped. He stops and points at you. Investigator, your job is not done. This manifest lists the name of a ship, the Star of Alexandria, and the name of its captain. Find him. I want a living witness who can testify that he took his orders from Sulla. He then turns to Crispus. Centurion, you are a ghost. No one knows you are in the city, let alone allied with me. I need you to watch Sulla's villa. I need to know who comes and goes. I need to know if he tries to flee or if he begins to move his assets. Be my eyes and ears. Finally, he looks at Lyra and he. You two will come with me. You are the most vulnerable. Sulla knows his brother-in-law visited your establishment. If he begins to suspect anything, you will be his first targets. You will stay in one of my country villas under my protection until this is over. You are the key witness. You must be kept safe at all costs. It's a sound, comprehensive plan. He has given everyone a role, a purpose. He is isolating his witnesses, gathering more evidence, and preparing for a final, decisive strike. The concept of a powerful patron offering protection or presidia was a cornerstone of Roman social and political life. A wealthy senator like Scaurus had private bodyguards, fortified villas, and a network of loyal clients who could act as a private army. In a city with no official police force to protect witnesses, the protection of a powerful individual was the only guarantee of safety. This system often placed individuals above the law, a reality that historians believe contributed to the Republic's eventual collapse. And what will you be doing, Senator, you ask? Scaurus smiles. I will be doing what I do best. I will be having dinner. I will attend the games. I will be seen in the Senate, debating trivialities. I will act as if nothing has happened. I will lull the great Lucius Cornelius Sulla, a Felix, into a false sense of security. I will let him believe his plan has succeeded, that his sister will take the fall, and that he is safe. And then, when the time is right, when you have brought me the ship's captain, I will strike. The plan is set. Lyra and a terrified but resolute Heber are whisked away by Scaurus' attendants on their way to a secret, safe location. Crispus gives you a firm nod, a silent acknowledgement of your shared mission, and slips out into the night to begin his surveillance. You are left alone with Scaurus. You have done well, he says, a note of genuine respect in his voice. You took a simple murder case and unraveled a plot against the state. When this is over, you will be rewarded. Handsomely. I just want to see it finished, you reply. Oh, it will be finished, he says. But remember, from this moment on, you are not just an investigator. You are an agent of my will. Do not fail me. You leave the senator's villa, the weight of your new mission heavy on your shoulders. You are no longer a neutral party seeking the truth. You are a player in a dangerous political game, acting on behalf of one of the most powerful and ruthless men in Rome. Your search for a ship's captain will take you to the city's bustling port of Ostia, a place as rough and dangerous as the subura. As you walk down the hill, you look back at the Palatine, its torch-lit villas glowing like malevolent eyes in the darkness. You think of the blackmail ledger that started this all. It was a book of secrets, but you realize now that everyone in this story has their own secret book. Gaius S. atonement, Marcia S. ambition, Crispus S. honor, Hebe S. loyalty, and Scaurus S. vengeance. The entire city is built on a foundation of hidden ledgers. Your job is to make sure the right one is read aloud to the world. The night is dark, and the port of Ostia awaits. You have a captain to find. The journey to Ostia is a journey into another world. You travel down the Tiber on a crowded river barge, leaving the marble monuments of Rome behind. The landscape flattens, the air grows thick with the smell of salt and sea, and the river widens as it prepares to meet the Mediterranean. Ostia, the port of Rome, rises from the marshes ahead of you, a sprawling, chaotic city built not for gods and senators, but for commerce and sailors. The port is a riot of noise and activity. Cranes creak under the weight of massive grain sacks. Merchants from every corner of the known world shout in a dozen different languages, and sailors, their skin weathered by sun and sea, unload cargo from ships packed into the harbor like sardines. The Star of Alexandria is a common name for a ship. Finding the right one will not be easy. You start where all information in a port city begins, the harbor master's office. After another strategically placed bribe, a weary official lets you look through the recent arrival logs. You find it, the Star of Alexandria, captained by a man named Demetrios of Rhodes, docked 3 days ago. The log states its cargo was Egyptian pottery. They lie, you now know. The ship is currently moored at Wharf 7. Wharf 7 is at the far end of the harbor, a grimy, isolated section used by independent traders. The Star of Alexandria is a sturdy, functional-looking merchant vessel, its sails furled, its deck quiet. It looks like a ship waiting for its next contract. You go aboard, claiming to have a message for the captain. A surly-looking sailor points you towards the captain's cabin at the stern. You find Demetrios inside, a thick-set Greek with a salt and pepper beard and shrewd, wary eyes. HES poring over a sea chart. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice a low growl. He has the guarded demeanor of a man who is used to trouble. "I have a message from your employer in Rome, Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, you say, using the name as a key to unlock his attention. Demetrios' eyes narrow. He gestures for you to sit. "I have fulfilled my contract. The cargo was delivered as instructed. My payment was made. My business with the man is concluded." "Not quite, you say. There has been a complication. The man who received your cargo, Gaius Murinae, has been murdered. The authorities are investigating. They are looking into his recent business dealings." You watch him carefully. A flicker of fear crosses his face before he masks it with a scowl. "That has nothing to do with me. I am a simple sailor. I carry what I am paid to carry. They have found the real shipping manifest. You lie, building the trap. The one listing the grain, not the pottery. Your name is on it. Sulla is in trouble, and he is going to claim that you acted alone, that you forged his name to sell the grain on the black market. He will sacrifice you to save himself." Demetrius slams his fist on the table. "That treacherous dog. I knew he could not be trusted. He bought the lie completely. You've successfully planted the seed of betrayal, turning him against his employer. But there is a way out," you continue, leaning in. "Another powerful senator, Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, is Sulla's rival. He knows the truth. He is prepared to offer you full immunity and protection in exchange for your testimony. All you have to do is tell him what you know." Demetrios looks at you, his mind racing, weighing his options. On one hand, a powerful, treacherous employer who will surely betray him. On the other, an equally powerful senator offering a lifeline. It's an easy choice. "What must I do?" he asks. "Come with me to Rome." "No. Tonight," you say, before Sulla learns that his plan is unraveling. He hesitates for only a moment. "Let me gather my things." You have him. You have secured the final, living piece of evidence. A witness who can stand before the Senate and testify that he took his orders directly from Sulla. But as you wait for Demetrios to pack a small bag, you hear heavy footsteps pounding up the gangplank. The cabin door bursts open. Standing there are two men. They are not Sula, his thugs. They are city watchmen from Rome, members of the Vigiles, and with them is the captain you met in the alley on the first day of your investigation. There he is, the watch captain barks, pointing directly at you. That's the man. Arrest him. You are completely stunned. What is happening? On what charge, you demand, your mind reeling? On the charge of murdering News Antonius Crispus, the captain declares. His body was found this morning in an alley in the Trans-Tiberium. Stabbed. A witness saw you arguing with him yesterday. It's a frame-up, a brilliant, vicious, and lightning-fast countermove. Sula must have been warned. Perhaps Crispus was spotted watching his villa. Perhaps one of Sula's spies in Scaurus' household overheard something. He learned that you had found Crispus, so he had Crispus killed and immediately planted a witness to frame you for the murder. Your entire plan has collapsed in an instant. You are being arrested for the murder of the very man you were trying to save. Your key witness to the original conspiracy is dead. Scaurus' grand plan is in ruins before it even began. The watchmen grab your arms, binding them tightly behind your back. The watch captain smirks at you. I told you to be careful which rocks you turn over, he says, his voice smug. He was clearly paid handsomely by Sula for this. Demetrios, the ship's captain, looks on, his face pale with terror. He sees you, his supposed savior, being arrested for murder. He will never talk now. He will deny everything, disappear on the next tide. You have lost him. As the watchmen drag you off the ship, you see it. Sula hasn't just defended himself. He has gone on the attack. He has neutralized your witness and is now neutralizing you, the investigator. He is cutting the head off the snake. The ease with which a powerful Roman could manipulate the system is a recurring theme in historical accounts. With no formal police investigation process, justice was often determined by the first plausible story presented to the magistrates. Planting a false witness or bribing an official was a common and often effective tactic. This made the pursuit of justice for the less powerful a perilous and often impossible endeavor. You are dragged through the streets of Ostia, a prisoner. You have failed. You flew too close to the sun, and Sula has swatted you out of the sky. As they shove you into a small, windowless cell in the local barracks, the iron door slamming shut with a sound of absolute finality, you are overwhelmed by a single thought. You are a dead man. No one is coming to save you. Scaurus will cut his losses and deny he ever knew you. You are a loose end, and Sula is very good at tying up loose ends. The cell is cold, damp, and smells of despair. The only light comes from a tiny, barred slit of a window high up on the wall, showing a sliver of dark blue evening sky. Time stretches and distorts. Hours feel like days. Your mind, which has been racing for a week, is now terrifyingly blank. You are trapped. Every move you made, every clever deduction has led you to this. Sula played the game better. He was more ruthless, more decisive. You think about Crispus, the old soldier who had found a sliver of redemption only to have it snatched away. His life ended in another dirty alley. You have not only failed to bring him justice, you have been framed for his murder. It's a perfectly closed loop of corruption. Sometime deep in the night, you hear the sound of the heavy bar on your cell door being lifted. This is it, you think. Sula's men, coming to silence you for good. They'll claim you tried to escape. It's the oldest trick in the book. The door swings open, but the man standing there is not a thug. It's Senator Scaurus. He is dressed in a simple, dark traveling cloak, his face grim in the flickering torchlight. Two of his own formidable bodyguards stand behind him. Your situation, Scaurus says, his voice a low, angry growl, has become inconvenient. You stare at him, speechless. You were sure he would abandon you. Did you really think I would let that puffed-up degenerate Sula outmaneuver me, he sneers. He killed your witness. A clumsy move. A desperate move. It shows me he is afraid. He knows we are close. He framed me, you say, your voice hoarse. The City Watch. The City Watch in this district reports to a magistrate who is a cousin of Sula's. A convenient family connection, Scaurus says, dismissing them with a wave of his hand. bribes and nepotism, the foundation of our glorious republic. He steps into the cell. Sula has made a mistake. He thinks he has cut the head off the snake, but he has only made the snake angry. He turns to you, his eyes burning with an intensity you have not seen before. I am not a good man, investigator, but I am a proud one. Sula has publicly insulted my intelligence. He has involved my name in a squalid murder plot. He has made this personal. I will not be stopped by a bought-out watch captain and a dead witness. Scourus' bodyguard step forward and, with a sharp knife, cut the ropes binding your hands. You rub your wrists, feeling the blood flow back into them. What now, you ask? Crispus is dead. The ship's captain will have sailed for the farthest corner of the sea by now. Crispus is dead, yes, Scourus says, but his story is not. And the captain has been persuaded to delay his departure. He allows himself a thin, predatory smile. My men can be very persuasive. He has Demetrios, while you were being arrested. Scourus' men must have been moving on the ship's captain. Scourus didn't retreat. He counterattacked. Sula believes you are neutralized, rotting in this cell. Scourus continues, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He believes he has won. We will let him keep believing that. He will grow comfortable. He will get careless. We need a new plan. A final one. We can no longer win this in the Senate or the courts with evidence. He has proven he will simply murder the evidence. We need to force his hand. We need to make him expose himself. So, we will arrange a meeting, Scourus says. A private one, between Sula and myself. I will send him a message. I will tell him that I have the ship's captain. I will tell him that I am willing to make a deal. I will offer to burn the manifest and silence the captain, in exchange for a significant sum of gold and his public support for my grain subsidy proposal. I will appeal to his greed and his arrogance. He will never agree, you say. He will see it as a trap. Oh, he will see it as a trap. Scourus agrees. But he will come, because his only other option is to let me stand up in the Senate with a living witness. He will come to the meeting, but he won't come to negotiate. He will come to kill me. He will bring his assassins. He will try to eliminate me, the captain, and the evidence all in one final, bloody night. You stare at him, horrified. You're setting yourself up as bait. I am setting a trap of my own, he corrects. The meeting will take place at a neutral location, an abandoned warehouse complex on the Tiber. My men will be hidden. Your men, Crispus' old comrades from the 10th Legion, if you can find them, will be there. And when Sula and his killers make their move, we will be waiting. It's an insane plan. A private war fought in the dead of night. It has nothing to do with law or justice. It's a raw, brutal power struggle. What is my role in this, you ask? You are the architect of this mess, Scourus says, a hint of admiration in his voice. You will be the architect of its conclusion. You will help me plan the ambush. You know how these people think. You've been one step ahead of them until now, and you will be there on the night. This is your case. You will see it to its end. The idea of senators engaging in what amounts to gang warfare seems shocking, but the late Roman Republic was rife with political violence. The streets of Rome were often battlegrounds for the hired gangs of powerful figures like Clodius Pulcher and Milo. The state had lost its monopoly on violence. Power was maintained not just through votes and speeches, but through intimidation and force. Scourus' plan is not an aberration. It is a symptom of a system in its death throes. He turns to leave. My men will get you out of here. You will be taken to a safe house. We will meet tomorrow to plan the details. Do not fail me. The door closes, and you are left in the darkness once more, but this time the despair is gone. It has been replaced by a terrifying, exhilarating clarity. The investigation is over. The time for gathering clues and connecting dots has passed. Now it is time for the final confrontation. A battle in the dark between two of Rome's most powerful men. And you are standing right in the middle of it. The safe house is a nondescript apartment in a quiet residential district, a world away from the Palatine Hill and the subura. For 2 days, you, Scourus, and a handful of his most trusted men plan the ambush. You feel less like an investigator and more like a military strategist, poring over crude maps of the warehouse district, planning sight lines and positioning men. Scourus, to your surprise, listens to your input, deferring to your knowledge of the criminal underworld. Scaurus's message is sent to Sula. The terms are laid out. Scaurus and the ship's captain Demetrios will meet Sula at midnight at the abandoned Fenestella warehouses. Sula is to come alone with the gold. It's an obvious, almost insulting lie. Everyone knows he will not come alone. The night of the meeting arrives, thick and moonless. The Fenestella warehouses are a derelict, skeletal complex by the river, their roofs caved in, their walls covered in moss and grime. It's the perfect stage for a tragedy. You are positioned on the roof of an adjacent building, hidden behind a crumbling parapet. From here, you have a clear view of the large, open square between the two main warehouses where the meeting is set to take place. Crispus would have appreciated the tactical advantage of the high ground. The thought brings a pang of sadness. Scaurus's men, a dozen elite gladiators from his own private school, are hidden in the shadows of the surrounding buildings. They are silent, professional, and armed with short swords and nets. A few minutes before midnight, Scaurus and Demetrios arrive. The ship's captain is terrified, his face a pale oval in the gloom. Scaurus, by contrast, is a picture of calm arrogance. He stands in the center of the square, a single torch lighting the scene, making him a perfect, solitary target. He is either the bravest man you have ever met, or the most foolish. The minutes tick by. The only sound is the gentle lapping of the Tiber against the stone walls. Then you see movement, not from the main entrance, but from the river. A small, dark barge drifts silently to the dock. No lights, no sound. Sula's men. They slip out of the barge like wraiths, at least 10 of them armed and cloaked. They melt into the shadows surrounding the square. It's a classic pincer movement. Sula himself appears a moment later, walking confidently into the torchlight. He is younger than you imagined, handsome in a cruel, predatory way. He carries a heavy sack, which he drops to the ground. Scaurus, he calls out, his voice echoing in the silence. You disappoint me. I thought your traps would be more subtle. And I thought your crimes would be. Scaurus shoots back, his voice dripping with contempt. But illegally importing grain is so common, and murdering your own family. Tuyoske, so messy. The pretense is dropped. This is not a negotiation. Sula smiles, a flash of white teeth in the darkness. I have the gold. Show me the captain, and we can conclude our business. Sula is trying to draw Demetrios closer, to get him on Scaurus in a single kill zone. Scaurus gestures to Demetrios, who shuffles forward, trembling. He seems nervous. Sula says with a mock pout, perhaps he needs a drink. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It's the signal. From the shadows, his assassins emerge, knives flashing. But before they can take 2 steps, Scaurus roars now. The night erupts into chaos. Scaurus's gladiators burst from their hiding places, and the square becomes a whirlwind of combat. It's not the organized, disciplined fighting of the legions. It's a brutal, chaotic melee. The sounds of shouting, grunting, and the sickening clang of steel on steel fill the air. Sula, seeing his ambush foiled, does not join the fight. He turns and runs back towards the barge. He is a politician, not a brawler. But you anticipated this. You gave a sharp whistle. From a dark alleyway behind Sula, another figure emerges, blocking his escape. It's Marcia. You didn't know she was part of the plan. Scaurus must have arranged it. He must have used his influence to have her released from custody, just for this night. She is no longer the hysterical woman from Scaurus's villa. She is cold, composed, and in her hand, she holds a small, elegant knife. Brother, she says, her voice devoid of all emotion. Leaving so soon? Sula stops dead, his face a mixture of shock and fury. You were supposed to be locked away. Plans change, she says. You are willing to let me take the blame for everything. For the murder you ordered. For the conspiracy you orchestrated. You left me to rot. You were a willing partner, he spits back. I was a fool, she replies. A fool who believed in family honor. But I will not be your scapegoat. This is the final, unexpected confrontation. Not between you and the killer, but between the 2 conspirators, turning on each other at the end. As they face off, you see your chance. You slide down a rope from the roof, landing silently in the shadows. The main fight is still raging, a chaotic dance of death. You circle around the edge of the conflict, your eyes on Sula. This needs to end. Sula, seeing his escape blocked by his sister and the tide of the battle turning against his men, makes a desperate move. He lunges at Marcia, trying to disarm her and take her as a hostage. You move, intercepting him. You are not a soldier or a gladiator, but you have spent your life in the rough and tumble world of Rome. You tackle him hard, sending you both sprawling to the ground. His knife skitters away into the darkness. You pin him, your forearm pressed against his throat. He struggles, his face contorted with rage and disbelief, shocked to be brought down by a man he considers a nobody. The fighting dies down. Scaurus' gladiators have won. Sula's men are either dead, wounded, or have fled. Scaurus walks over, wiping a smear of blood from his cheek with the back of his hand. He looks down at the pathetic, struggling form of his rival. "It's over, Lucius," he says. Sula glares up at him with pure hatred. "You have no proof. A ship's captain who you've coerced. A madwoman for a sister. No court will convict me." "You're right," Scaurus says calmly. "This will never go to court." He gives a signal to his men. They haul Sula to his feet. "What are you doing?" Sula screams, panic finally breaking through his arrogance. "We are administering Roman justice," Scaurus says, his voice cold as ice. He turns to Marcia. "He is your brother. The choice is yours. The law offers two paths for a man like him, a traitor who threatens the state and murders his own family. He can be formally tried and, if convicted, exiled. He would live, but in disgrace. There is the older way, the patria potestas, the father's power, the right of a family to deal with its own, to cleanse its own stain. Privately, he is offering her a choice, official legal justice or a private family execution. Marcia looks at her brother, her face a blank canvas. You see a flicker of the old family bond, a moment of hesitation. But then she looks at you, at Scaurus, at the bodies of the men who died here tonight. She thinks of her dead husband, a man she conspired to kill but for whom she may have felt some twisted form of affection. She gives a slow, deliberate nod. "Our family has been dishonored," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "The stain must be cleansed." Scaurus' men drag the screaming Sula away, into the darkness of the warehouse. You don't need to see what happens next. You can imagine it. A quick, quiet death. A body weighted down and dropped into the Tiber. Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix will simply disappear. The official story will be that he fled the city to escape his debts. The grain conspiracy will be quietly swept under the rug by Scaurus, who will use his knowledge of it to gain leverage over the other conspirators. Marcia will likely be sent to a remote country estate, a voluntary exile to live out her days in obscurity. This is Roman justice. Not clean, not fair, but brutally pragmatic. It wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about restoring balance, eliminating a threat, and protecting the interests of the powerful. You solved the murder, but you did not bring the killer to a court of law. You simply delivered him to a different, more final kind of judge. The silence that descends upon the warehouse square is heavier and more profound than the chaos it replaced. The air is thick with the coppery smell of blood and the damp chill of the river. Scaurus' gladiators efficiently and dispassionately clean up the aftermath, removing the bodies of Sula's men with the same practiced ease they might clean their equipment after a training session. This is a business to them. Scaurus walks over to you. The triumphant fire in his eyes has been replaced by a weary satisfaction. "It is done," he says. "It's a statement of fact, not a celebration." He looks at the dark, hulking shape of the warehouse where Sue met his end. A messy business, but necessary. He turns his attention to you. "You have proven to be surprisingly effective," he admits, which from him is the highest form of praise. "You navigated the currents of this city, from the gutters of the sub-URA to the halls of the Palatine. You have a talent for it." He reaches into his cloak and produces a heavy leather purse. It jingles with the unmistakable sound of gold coins. "Your payment, more than we agreed, for services rendered, and for your silence." You take the purse. It's heavy enough to change your life. Heavy with the weight of everything that has happened. "And what happens now?" you ask. Now we forget, Scaurus says simply. The official record will show that Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, facing financial ruin and the dishonor of his sister's madness, has fled the city. The grain matter will be handled internally. Marcia will retire to the country for her health. The Captain Demetrios will be given a new ship and a new identity and will sail so far away he'll forget the name of Rome. And you, he says, his gaze sharp, will go back to your life. You are a private investigator who was briefly hired by the Murine family, but found no conclusive evidence. The case is closed. Do you understand? It's an order, wrapped in the guise of advice. You are to erase the last week from your memory. You are to become a nobody again. You know it. You understand perfectly. You are a loose end, but you are a useful loose end, and Scaurus has decided it is better to pay you for your silence than to eliminate you. You look over at Marcia. She stands alone, a solitary figure staring out at the dark water of the Tiber. Her face is pale, her expression unreadable. She is both a murderer and a victim, a conspirator and an instrument of justice. Her life is ruined, but she has survived, which is more than her brother can say. Her fate is a strange, gray purgatory, a life of quiet exile, haunted by the ghosts of her husband and her brother. You wonder if she will ever find peace. You doubt it. What about justice for Gaius Murine? In a way it has been served. His killers have been brought down, but not by the law. His death was not an act of justice, but the catalyst for a political purge. He has become a footnote in his own murder story, a story that is now owned by Senator Scaurus. This is the fate of many historical events. The personal tragedies that set them in motion are often overshadowed by the larger political consequences. A historian looking back at this event centuries from now might see only the fall of Sulla and the rise of Scaurus. The name Gaius Murine would be lost, a minor detail in a power struggle between great men. You think of the others. Of Crispus, the old soldier who died just as he had found his honor again. His name will never be cleared. He will go down in the city's records as a murder victim, nothing more. His brief moment of redemption is known only to you. You think of Hebe, who will live out her life in comfort and safety under Scaurus' protection, but will always carry the memory of the kind man who carved her wooden birds and the terrible secrets he entrusted to her. You have the gold in your hand, but you feel a profound sense of emptiness. You sought the truth and you found it. But the truth was a tangled, ugly thing, and revealing it did not lead to a clean, satisfying conclusion. It led to more death, more secrets, and a brutal rebalancing of power. You didn't fix a broken system, you just learned how to operate within it. You survived, which in this city is perhaps the only victory that matters. You turn and walk away from the warehouse, leaving Scaurus to his politics and Marcia to her ghosts. You don't look back. The purse of gold feels cold in your hand. You have solved the case, but you have lost something along the way. Some small belief in the order of things, perhaps. You have looked into the dark heart of Rome, and it has looked back at you, and it has changed you. The case is closed. The story is over. But you know you will carry its weight for the rest of your days. You don't go home right away. The gold in your purse feels like a burning coal, and the quiet of your small apartment feels too confining. Instead, you find yourself walking, your feet carrying you aimlessly through the now silent streets, until you end up where so many of Rome's stories do, the banks of the Tiber. You stand on the stone embankment, looking at the black, sluggish water. The river is the city's great confessor, its surface reflecting the faint starlight, its depths holding a million secrets. Everything in Rome, eventually, finds its way here. The rainwater that washes the streets clean, the refuse from the houses, the bodies of the murdered, the hopes of the desperate. A few yards away, you see the dark, arched opening of the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome. It's a torrent of filth, the city's hidden intestines, emptying into the river with a steady, gurgling sigh. It's one of Rome's oldest and most enduring pieces of infrastructure, an engineering marvel that has served the city for centuries. Romans were immensely proud of it, seeing it as a symbol of their ability to tame nature and impose order on a chaotic world. But standing here now, you see it differently. It's not a symbol of order. It's a symbol of what must be hidden to maintain the illusion of order. All the waste, all the corruption, all the unpleasant truths get flushed out here in the dark, carried away from the pristine marble of the forum. You feel a certain kinship with the great sewer tonight. You've been doing the same job. You walk along the riverbank, the heavy purse bumping against your leg. You think about the path that brought you here. It started with a dead man in an alley and it ended with a private execution in a warehouse. In between, you navigated a world of lies, blackmail, and ambition. You realize now that you never found a single, simple truth. Instead, you found a series of competing stories. Marcia's story was about family honor. Sula's was about ambition. Scour's was about revenge. Crispus's was about redemption. Hebe's was about loyalty. Even Gaius, the victim, had his own competing narratives. The respectable merchant, the ruthless loan shark, the sentimental artist. The final outcome was determined by which story was the most true, but by which one was told by the most powerful person. Scaurus won, so his version of the story becomes the truth. And that, you realize, is the ultimate secret of Rome. Not the conspiracies or the murders, but the nature of truth itself. Historians centuries from now will debate this very point. Was Roman society founded on laws and facts, or on the power of narrative? Was justice a function of evidence, or a function of the most persuasive speech, the most compelling story? You, having lived through it, know the answer. The truth is just clay. The powerful are the sculptors. You reach into your pocket and your fingers touch the smooth, worn surface of the brothel token, the spin tria. You had forgotten it was still there. The clue that started you down this rabbit hole. The clue that Marcia likely planted to lead you astray. It feels like a lifetime ago. You pull it out. Look at it one last time in the faint light, the crude figures. The numeral XII, and with a flick of your wrist, you toss it into the Tiber. It makes a tiny, almost inaudible splash before the black water swallows it whole. One more secret for the river to keep. You imagine all the other secrets hidden in the river's muddy bottom. You've heard of defix I1s, curse tablets, small sheets of lead inscribed with hateful messages, calling on the gods of the underworld to bind an enemy, to ruin their health, to silence them in court. People would scratch the name of a rival in a chariot race, a political opponent, or a lover who spurned them, then fold the tablet, pierce it with a nail, and throw it into a body of water like this one. The river is a repository of the city's silent, vicious hatreds. Sula's name is probably on a dozen of them already. The first hint of dawn is beginning to touch the eastern sky, the same gray promise that started this whole affair. It's time to go home. The gold in your purse doesn't feel like a victory prize. It feels like a severance payment, a fee for services rendered, and for the part of yourself you lost along the way. You can use it to buy a better apartment, maybe even a small shop. You can live a more comfortable life. But you know, you will never walk the streets of this city in the same way again. You will always see the cracks in the marble, hear the whispers behind the laughter, and feel the weight of the secrets flowing silently beneath your feet. You turn your back on the river and head towards your small room in the waking city, a stranger to the man you were a week ago. The walk home is a slow, quiet journey through the final moments of the night. The heavy gold in your purse seems to lose its sharp edges, its weight dissolving into the general weariness that has settled deep into your bones. The hard facts of the case, the names and the betrayals, the glint of a knife and the texture of a secret letter, all begin to soften, their sharp outlines blurring, becoming less like evidence and more like the fading images of a dream you are struggling to hold on to. You climb the familiar stairs to your apartment, each step a little lighter than the one before. Inside, the cool, still air is a welcome balm. You don't light a lamp. You let the pre-dawn gloom, the soft gray light that is neither night nor day, fill the small space. The sounds of the city, the distant rumble of the first carts, the call of a lone bird are no longer a harsh intrusion, but a gentle, rhythmic lullaby, the steady heartbeat of the world outside your window. And as you sink onto your bed, the coarse wool of the blanket feels like the softest linen. The memories of the past week do not haunt you. Instead, they drift past, detached and distant, like clouds passing across the moon. The faces of the dead and the powerful, the living and the lost, they're all just characters now, their passion spent, their stories told. The river has taken the last of the secrets, and the current is pulling you now, a gentle tide, drawing you away from the shore of Wickles Nice. And perhaps you are already there, in that gentle space between waking and dreaming, where the noise of the world fades to a peaceful hum. The story is over. The city sleeps, and so can you.